Our Giants game day coverage begins now.
It's the mosaic.
So before gloves start popping,
diving, he makes the catch,
and bats start cracking,
it is gone.
We bring you the voice of Bay Area baseball for the past 29 years.
As I always say, baseball reflects what life is all about.
This is Talkin' Baseball with Marty Laurie.
That's what we do. We talk ball.
On KNBR, the sports leader.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Talkin' Baseball on this Saturday as we get ready for the first of two games between the San Francisco Giants and the Oakland Athletics. And we won't be saying Oakland Athletics much more after this season. So this is a very significant weekend. It's the last time the Giants will be playing the Oakland Athletics, and the Athletics will be moving up to Sacramento next year. And this is the end of San Francisco-Oakland baseball, which goes back to the Pacific Coast League and goes back over 100 years that the Giants and A's have played, of course, in this since 1968. But prior to that in the PCL going back to the turn of the century. So there's a long history here, and we get to be part of it for this last weekend between these two teams. So the baseball season does go on, and this is going to be a tough weekend for the Giants. This is not simple. The A's are a team. They're 29-30 at home, and the Giants need these games. Let's face it, there's still a lot of baseball left to be played. And I know since the last time we talked on Sunday when the A's lost to the Tigers, and then ended up losing 3 of 4 to the Braves in tough fashion, and 2 10-inning games. And then they got knocked out 13-2, and then came back behind Logan Webb on Thursday as he pitched 7 innings and a shutout ball against the Braves. There's still a lot of baseball to be played. There's still a ton of baseball, 38 more games to go. The Giants are at 500 at 62-62. And as play starts today, they are 3 games out of the wild card. Now, Atlanta does have the tiebreaker now. That was significant. The Braves taking 3 of 4. If the team's tied at the end of the year, Atlanta would get the playoff nod because they won the season series. So the Giants are 3 out, maybe 4 if you want to consider it. But with 38 to go, there's still a lot of baseball left, and it starts today with the A's and the Giants. And the A's are a team, as I said, at home they're 29-30, and since the All-Star break, they've been playing great ball. They just won 4 of 6 on a trip, which took them through Toronto as well as the New York Mets. And they came back and beat the Mets after being down 4-0, 5-0 in their last game and came back to win it. They hit a ton of home runs. They've got Brent Rooker, they've got Bleday, they've got Andujar, they've got Butler, they've got Langoliers. They've got some players that can score some runs. And the Giants are going to have to be on the top of their game to take care of the A's this weekend. It is not a simple weekend for the San Francisco Giants. But for the Giants, they go on the road. It is a road game. They are 26-35 on the road. Now, they didn't play yesterday, so they have a full day off. The bullpen is well rested, and they may need it today as they turn to their 22-year-old pitcher, Hayden Birdsong, who's really had a rough couple of games here. His last 2, he's only gone 6 1/3 innings, 10 hits, 12 runs, 4 homers, 4 walks, and 6 strikeouts. And as I said, this is an A's team that hits the ball out of the park, and Birdsong is going to have to keep the ball in the park today. For this young man, he's 3-2 on the year with a .540 earned run average, but he's 22. This is August the 17th. Pitchers are getting tired. The games are getting more important, and he has not been down the stretch before, so the Giants are asking a lot out of their young pitchers, and Birdsong is one, and, of course, Kyle Harrison is the other one. And then there's Robbie Ray, who's coming back from the injury. And as I said with Cy Young candidates, someone like a Robbie Ray who's had that kind of excitement in his life to have Tommy John surgery, you can't wait to come back. And he couldn't wait to come back against the Braves. And, of course, the command isn't there, and he hits a couple of people, walks a couple, and then gives up the slam to Michael Harris. So the Giants' starting pitching, which was going to be the best in baseball, is starting to show a few cracks here. The Giants are going to have to deal with it as we go through this weekend and what's coming up with the White Sox coming in. They shouldn't lose any of those games. And then it's off to Seattle and Milwaukee, and then the fun really starts. They're coming back against the Marlins, and then, of course, you've got the Brewers and Kansas City and all these teams that are very much in it, Arizona and San Diego as well. So we've got a lot of baseball left in front of us. For Birdsong, lefties 200 against them with a couple homers. Righties 281 with 6 homers. The first pitch, they like to ambush them, 6 for 15 with a home run. The Giants against the American League, they're 14 and 18. Against the West, they're 6 and 5. Now they've got these 2 games here, and then they've got another 3 games coming up against Seattle, and that'll be their time with the American League West. But they're 6 and 5 now. Since the break, the Giants are 15 and 12. And the A's, believe it or not, and Ken Korak and I will talk about this tomorrow. He's going to join us tomorrow, one of the voices of the Oakland Athletics. The A's are like 15 and 9 in their last 24 games. In August, the Giants are 8 and 6. Now, the key for the Giants, if they allow 4 more runs, 17 and 57. If they allow 3 or less, and that's where this good pitching has got to come in with this bullpen as well, they are, believe it or not, 45 and 5. Now, if they score 4 or more, they're 48 and 22. So the offense has got to kick it in, and it's got to be more than Tyler Fitzgerald and the big boys. As I've said this for so many years, the guys who cash the checks and get the money. That's Michael Conforto. Matt Chapman is another one. Lamont Wade isn't money-wise there yet, but he's someone they rely on. He's got to come through, and the big guys have got to get it done for the Giants to score some runs here. The issue for them has really been offensive more than the pitching side, although the pitching side did have some trouble against the Braves this particular week. Although I'll tell you this, the Monday night game, Blake Snell and Chris Sale was one for the ages, as between the two, they struck out, 23 between them, I think, and then 31, 33 or something in the game, the most that we've ever had at Oracle Park. So there was some good pitching there, and Snell, of course, is coming up. His turn will be coming up again. And Logan Webb, they've been solid, but it's offensive. The Giants with Ramos and Encarnacion and Wisely and Bailey, and, they've just got to get it done. And, hey, McRae is up. Rodney McRae is up and hit a home run, and he's a tools guy. It's nice to see him. He can run. He can play center field, and we'll see how he does at the Coliseum today. For the A's, it's Osvaldo Bido going today. Osvaldo Bido, B-I-D-O. He's 28 years old, out of the Dominican Republic. They got him from Pittsburgh. He's 3-3 on the year with a 392 earned run average. In 2 starts in August, he's been very good. The whip is only 1.26. 12 innings, 8 hits, 3 runs. This is in August. There's a couple of starts, no homers, 4 walks, and 11 strikeouts. Lefties hitting 200, righties 226 against him. Conforto's 1 for 2, Wade 1 for 1, Wisely 1 for 1, and Yaz 0 for 1. Yaz is another one who's got to get the bat going this weekend. This has got to be a good weekend for him, for this ball club to get some offense out of the corners. They've just got to get that offense going that way. With 2 out, he's 5 for 18 with runners in scoring position. With 1 out or less, 10 for 40 with runners in scoring position. So he's a young man. The batting average against is 216. He's a righty, so that left-handed lineup that I just talked about, if it's Wade, Yastrzemski, Bailey, they've got to get it happening today for the Giants. With Conforto is another one, too, that's got to pick it up for the Giants today. So that's a little story of what's going on between these 2 ball clubs. It is Bay Bridge Series, the end of A's and Giants, and we'll talk about it over this weekend. Just a shame what's happened with baseball in Oakland. If you look back in 1990, the A's drew 2.9 million. Even you go back 8 or 9 years ago, they were drawing good crowds. And this is a good franchise. This is a franchise that is going to be moving. But this is not like the old St. Louis Browns that couldn't do anything right and basically were run out of St. Louis. This is not the Seattle Pilots, who were just a disaster in Seattle and ended up going to Milwaukee to become the Brewers. This is one of the most successful franchises in the history of baseball, and John Shea wrote a good article about it today in the San Francisco Chronicle. This is an A's team that's won 17 divisions. They've been in the playoffs 21 times, 4 World Series, and actually have had more success in the American League than the Giants have had in a similar period in the National League. So it's a shame. It really is. The fans in Oakland are fabulous. There's a Hall of Fame celebration today for the Athletics. We'll talk about that. And there's tremendous history. This is a very, very well organized franchise over the years on the baseball side. But the financial side, the business side, has always been an issue. So it goes back to Charlie Finley in Oakland and comes right up here to the Fisher family that has certainly turned things against the team in Oakland and the fans in Oakland. So we'll see how it turns out. But it is Giants and A's baseball for the last time at the Coliseum, and it's worth listening to it this weekend. Susan Slusser of the Chronicle joins us next right here on the Sports Leader.
Talking baseball with Marty Lurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
Experience the epitome of luxury and craftsmanship with Inicio Windows and Doors, another exciting product line from BMD Manufacturing. Inicio Windows and Doors sets the standard in ultra-premium European design. Wow. For the most demanding American building standards. Available both in steel and aluminum, they are meticulously engineered to elevate your living space to new heights of sophistication. Learn more about Inicio Windows and Doors today. Discover the perfect blend of European beauty and style with unwavering durability and strength. Visit InicioWindows.com. INICIO Windows.com. Inicio Windows and Doors, where European design meets American craftsmanship.
McRae after Casale's fly ball out. McRae swings, and he belts one. Deep right center field, way back there. Harris at the warning track, at the wall. Goodbye! The first Major League home run for Grant McRae into the Atlanta bullpen. What a moment for the rookie.
Prepping you for today's orange and black ball game, we now take you back to Talking Baseball with Marty Laurie on KNBR, the sports leader.
Boy, nice call by John on that. These two teams met not too long ago and split a two-game series. The Giants lost the first game 5-2 to Sears, who they'll see tomorrow. And then Logan Webb spun that shutout 1-0 over the A's in the second game. But Susan Slusser of the Chronicle joins us. Susan, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm great, Marty. How are you doing?
Good, very good. Boy, you know, you and I met way back in 1996. San Francisco Giants, Oakland Athletics, at the Coliseum. And this is the end of it. I'm sure you have feelings about it.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I really, I keep hoping against hope that something shifts and they at least wind up playing some of the next 3 years at the Coliseum, since I think the Sacramento option is inadequate for Major League Baseball. But, right now, this is it. It's upsetting. It kind of came even more into focus the other day when the spring training schedule came out, and there's no Bay Bridge series in spring training. It's the Tigers instead for the Giants preseason in San Francisco. And that is kind of like, oh, yeah, this is for real. And then having this series on the heels of that announcement, it's coming a little too much into focus. I don't like it.
Susan, as we go back over the years thinking about this Oakland franchise, and I mentioned this in the open, this is a franchise. We're not talking about the St. Louis Browns or the Seattle Pilots or something like that. This is a franchise that's had tremendous success in Oakland over the years. And just some of your thoughts, some of the highlights that you remember about the Oakland A's.
Well, I mean, my first games as a child were going to the Coliseum with the 72, 73, 74 teams. So, that era of greatness, I'm not sure you could say it. Maybe some of the Yankees teams came close to that. But really, that was one of the great dynasties ever, certainly in modern baseball. So, but you carry that on, all those playoff teams, the Canseco years and McGuire years, and then later with the Big Three and the Billy Beane Moneyball years. It's just a lot of big personalities and really great baseball. And, until the Raiders moved back in what was actually a beautiful multi-purpose stadium.
Well, this is an emotional weekend for all the employees at the Coliseum and all of us who really covered baseball in Oakland, me included. I got my start there doing my pregame show there way back in 1998 was the first year of that, and I was on in 1996. But this is an important series for the Giants. 3 of 4 against the Braves, and it was a tough series. Those two losses in 10 innings could have gone either way. They're still very much alive in the wild card. So the A's are a formidable opponent here for the Giants this weekend.
Yeah, my colleague John Shea wrote earlier in the week about how really the A's have outplayed the Giants in some respects, certainly offensively, here recently. I think if you put together one Bay Area team right now with the A's offense and the Giants pitching, you'd have a really excellent team. But the Giants, one thing that they have done better in the second half is beat the teams they should beat. They're just not playing as well against the teams that that are at or over 500. I'm not quite sure what you say about the A's right now, because the A's are playing pretty well. They're sub 500, and you go into it thinking this is a series that the Giants need and they should win, but not necessarily. This A's team's playing very well. So the Giants need to show something. They really needed to come out of that Atlanta series with at least a split. Didn't get it, even though the first two games were decided essentially by the place runner, which I hate. I don't know what to think. They're not catching a lot of breaks, but they really need to do something, and this would certainly be a good place to start because their schedule does not get easier.
No, Farhan did say that this is a rotation that's the pennant-winning rotation. And as soon as he said that, Robbie Ray hit the wall a little bit with his comeback. And look, the kid today is only 22, and Harrison is 22. There's a big game today for Hayden Birdsong against a team that hits home runs and is scoring some runs here.
Yeah, it's not necessarily an easy matchup. This is one of the tougher ones I think that they could have right now, given that offense. And a crowd that's going to be fired up. It'll be certainly bigger than most of the crowds they've been getting at the Coliseum this season. I think that could play into things too. Trading Alex Cobb was a little bit of a head scratcher for me because they needed depth at the very least. Birdsong had shown enough, I think, at that point to get a spot, but wow, Harrison's showing signs of fatigue. Birdsong's been a little more erratic, which is understandable. And, of course, you're not quite sure what you're going to get from Robbie Ray from start to start since he's coming off Tommy John. So it's a very strong rotation when everyone is performing at their peak. But right now they got a few chinks here and there.
Yeah, they got to score some runs. The 13-2 game was somewhat of an aberration, and Michael Harris ended that one in the first inning with the slam. But most of the games are pretty similar, Susan. Where they go 2-1, 3-2, 4-3. And they're fighting along the way. They've got to get the offense going. Well, who do you look to say, okay, this is a guy who can get hot here and carry this team? Who's the guy for the Giants?
The guy that they traded who got hot is like right before they traded him and continued to be a little hot. It tends to be the sluggers that are guys who get really hot and can carry you. We've certainly seen Lamont do that in some years. When he gets hot, he can carry a team. He's just been so banged up. That would be tough for him to do. The most fiery guy on the team by far is Matt Chapman. He has been swinging the bat better. If he got really on a hot streak, I think that would lift everybody. But he's really kind of doing all he can, it seems like. So I don't know. They need somebody to emerge besides, just Tyler Fitzgerald hitting his homer every other day. They need somebody to really, really step it up. Patrick Bailey is starting to look a little tired like he did, this time last year. He really needs to step it up, and it would be very, very fun and interesting to see Michael Conforto go on a real tear, given his, this is it for him probably with the Giants. I would love to see him maybe get hot. It would help him going into free agency too.
There's so much written about Farhan, and look, the guy followed Brian Sabian. That's not a simple job at all under the best of circumstances, but it is 6 years. And, of course, you get to this stage of the season. This is where Gabe Kapler had trouble last year. Is Farhan in some trouble if this team doesn't get in the playoffs? What do you think?
I think he's okay. I think probably has this year and next year. This is just a guess. Kind of an educated guess, but the signs we've heard from ownership and higher ups have been very supportive of Farhan. The drafts have been good. That's one thing I like is that the draft, some of the younger players are already panning out that have come from this front office. You could argue that they didn't land some of the big fish that they went after. Those big fish probably were going to wind up in the places that they went anyway, and they did get Correa and decided against. So I don't know how much, given all of that, he's done about as well in terms of getting free agents as I think he probably could have. Not everybody could get Shohei or Aaron Judge, that's for sure. So, but this is an inadequate offense. I would have liked to see one more big bat at the trade deadline, even if it meant trading, some better prospects. Nobody that's probably on the current 40-man, but they could have traded some good prospects and brought in a bigger bat.
Should they be more aggressive with signing Matt Chapman right now? And look, the guy's terrific. And look, we both have seen Eric Chavez at the height, the way he played third. And this guy plays every single day, makes every play, and runs into enough where he's got a little bit of, pop in the bat. Should they be aggressive right now and see if they can't get him signed?
I don't know if the timing necessarily is a factor, but I think they'll be aggressive. I think they have to be aggressive. I think he's a must for them. So, and that when you're talking about things that potentially could be, weighed as plus and minuses, the ability to get somebody back like Chapman and or Snell. I think those things will wind up mattering. But I don't, if you sign Chapman now, does it give the team a boost perhaps? Maybe. Sometimes those, I've seen an awful lot of contract extensions that immediately whoever signs gets hurt or goes into a complete funk. So I'm not sure necessarily the timing is necessarily all that much of an important factor.
All right, let's talk about the West. Look, the Giants still have 6 left with Arizona, 6 with San Diego, none with L.A., none with Colorado. They're 3 back of Atlanta and 4 if you want to say that Atlanta has the tiebreaker. Giants are still very much into this thing, and the West is still up for grabs. Isn't that something? We thought the Dodgers would run away with it, but they're doing anything but that.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a flawed division than I think that we thought. It's a good division still, could wind up potentially with several playoff teams coming out of the West, but it's a little more even. Hey, look, Arizona's not a surprise anymore, right? They go to the World Series last year. The Padres have spent an enormous amount of money and made some really bold trades to get a roster that always seems like it should contend, even if they've been disappointments from time to time. So the talent is there. I mean, if you're looking at sheer talent, the Giants can compete when it comes to pitching, but as an everyday lineup, they don't have some of the star names, certainly, that the Dodgers and the Padres have, but they also don't have the speed and athleticism of an Arizona. Yep. I would like to see one or the other, a couple big boppers or a little bit more speed and athleticism.
McRae gives him a little bit of tools. I don't know if he's going to hit, but it's interesting they brought him up. Maybe not Meckler, who's got a little bit more, got a little bit more in the bat, but McRae is up here, and he does appear to be a tools guy. What do you think of him?
Yeah, I'm not surprised because word was at the deadline that they were looking for a defensive center fielder, and that just didn't really wind up materializing. I was kind of surprised that Kiermaier went to the Dodgers, given the fact that the Giants were looking strongly. I think he could have been had, probably, judging by what the Dodgers got him for. I think McRae is kind of like Plan B. Well, we didn't get a defensive-minded center fielder. We've got this great pitching staff. And he looks like he's a very, very good center fielder. So, like his second game, he hits a homer. So that's, maybe they'll get more from him offensively than they're expecting to, and that's got to help him relax. He'll certainly be playing well defensively no matter what, but that's got to potentially help his offense too, to already have that under his belt.
Yeah, this is a good example of letting a young player play. But look what happened to Luciano. And look, you and I have watched him for years since they signed him originally, and he goes back and forth, and they did it to him again. I mean, there's got to be some stop to that at some point.
I don't know if I agree. I mean, that's kind of modern baseball. You and Jackson Holliday got sent back down. The problem with Luciano is he doesn't really have a position at this point, and I do understand this. Hey, we're going to trade Soler and provide him DH at bats. But that was the day before they got Canna. So then now you got, Canna too. And I don't think they knew what they had in Encarnacion. And Encarnacion came up, had a big week, has had really good at bats, and might be a little further ahead right now in terms of consistency. They can find spots for him to play. Some of this is the fact that Luciano's development was, interrupted several times by injuries, then the pandemic. He has not had an easy road of it as he's developed. But also, I would have liked to have seen them move him off shortstop into another position earlier. He might be here now, but also, hey, if they're moving to second, they've had a second baseman, so I'm not quite sure where he goes. It's a little bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah, that's a tough one because the bat did play in the PCL. And I think you just have to give someone a chance, like Fitzgerald. You just have to give him enough at-bats to see if he can get it done. So I thought it was a little early to send them back. All right. Hicks. Is Hicks going to be the closer on this team? What are they doing with Hicks? How are they working him in here?
Good question. I think he'll I think they would like to get him a little bit more of a breather. certainly seems like Walker is the guy that's going to get the bulk of the save opportunities. And they have a lot of guys out there that could close. And I've never been a huge fan of closer by committee, but I do like the fact that any team can have a bunch of guys that can do it, and the Giants are one of them. Hicks can pitch in a lot of different situations. He's obviously stretched out. He could be, he could pitch a little bit of bulk inning kind of stuff. He could go 1+ if need be. You could match him up. He throws so hard. I think once he feels kind of comfortable and settled in the bullpen, we'll see him pitch in some later inning situations for sure.
Yeah, I would work him into that. Let him be the closer. Put Walker back where he's comfortable, and let Hicks do it. Then he threw that 100, threw it past Ozuna when he needed it the other day. That was maybe the best pitch he's thrown in a while. Susan Slusser is with us, and she covers the Giants for the Chronicle, and of course has covered Bay Area baseball for so long. I'm glad that you could be with us in this very historic weekend of Giants, A's, and San Francisco, Oakland baseball that goes back in the Pacific Coast League to the turn of the last century. My goodness. Susan, you wrote an article a couple of days ago about Glenn Kuiper. And Glenn has been on with us every Sunday since spring training, talking baseball, and, of course, had the issues last year and lost his job. Let's talk about that article that you wrote and the response to that article, and you had a lot of people in it, and I'd like to hear how the crowd reacted to it.
Yeah, I think it seems to me that listeners, readers, people that follow the A's and certainly know the background seem a little split, kind of almost along the lines of the people that I talked to for the story, where I certainly there were an awful lot of people that feel like, let's give him a second chance. It doesn't seem like it was an intentional slip, as bad a slip as it is. I mean, I'm not – one thing Dr. Harry Edwards said that I kind of liked was, look, Glenn has never tried to minimize this. He's never made excuses for it. It was offensive, it was wrong, but he said, I think he deserves a second chance because he hasn't. He never tried to explain it away or make it something that it wasn't. He's taken ownership of it. He's done a lot of studying and research and reaching out and connecting to members of the community. But there are a lot of people that are still not in a forgiving mood. Dave Sims, who I'm sure you know well, very esteemed baseball broadcaster, one of the very few black play-by-play announcers in baseball, and a wonderful man. He's like, I'm like, look, no, I don't think you should ever go back on the air. This is too big a subject. And I can see kind of both sides of that, It's a tough one. Tim Kawakami from The Athletic the other day said, maybe this is just a matter of competence, and if you're a broadcaster, you should be able to avoid slip-ups like that. But easier said than done. Broadcasters stumble over words all the time. It's just not the word to do it with. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but certainly a very long, well-respected career. I would not be surprised to see Glenn back with some sort of full-time job in broadcasting at some point, and I hope he is.
Yeah, he's been terrific with us every weekend. We've had him on every Sunday talking ball, and I've known him for so many years, and I wanted to be able to do that, to get him on the air, so I'm glad to be able to do it. But look, I'll bring this up. Look at the Boston Red Sox player who made the homophobic slur the last week and got a 2-game suspension, and everything's fine. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think something said in the heat of a moment versus on a broadcast from a professional broadcaster are judged very differently, and different bosses, all sorts of things go into that. But I do think heat of the moment stuff gets. But then, my good friend Marley Rivera was fired from ESPN last year for saying something that she should not have on camera, or not live on camera, but on something that was caught on microphone, and she was fired. There are different standards for broadcasters, and that's just I think probably as it should be. As again, Dr. Harry Edwards pointed out, they're a reflection of ownership. They're a reflection of the executives. They're a reflection of the whole team, including the players and the fan base. It's a lot to live up to. It's a big responsibility. and a lot more comes from it when you're a professional at speaking.
Yeah, I just like to. I guess I'm a criminal defense lawyer at heart, but I always like to look at the big picture of who someone is, and that's the key for me. Who the person really is, and that's why I like to come to bat for Glenn. All right. Well, tomorrow you'll be out there, and it'll be the last, unless you're right, unless something happens with Sacramento, last San Francisco-Oakland game. How do you feel about it? I mean, who are you going to say goodbye to out there?
Oh gosh, everybody. I mean, that's my heart breaks for all the fans. It's just one of the best fan bases in pro sports, and all the longtime employees, especially those that won't be going to Sacramento or maybe hanging in there for Sacramento but not going to Vegas if and when that happens. It's heartbreaking. So many people have dedicated their entire careers to that team in that city and want to stay. Starting really at the top. Billy Beane's now in an advisory role, but when I spoke to him a couple weeks ago for a Q&A, he was very clear about how much Oakland means to him, and he had the opportunity to go to Boston but decided to stay in Oakland. It was the place for him, and he still speaks absolutely glowingly of it. David Forst, has lived in the East Bay for a long time. He's had numerous opportunities to go elsewhere and has chosen not to. These are people who are synonymous with the A's and with Oakland, and I don't think any of them wants to see this at all. Nobody does. Really, I mean, nobody does. It's awful.
No, and you know who I feel for? David Feldman. Who is the ultimate Oakland A's fan, knows everything, and Mike Selleck, and those who put their heart into it. Mike Selleck's been there since like the day he got out of college. I think he was working there even before. So it's true.
That's in the best, absolutely best in the business. To both of those guys.
Well, big weekend. Yeah, big weekend for baseball. Truthfully, the Giants need it. They really need the couple of games here. But it is an emotional time for the fan. There'll be big crowds, I'm sure, both days. So glad to have you on today. I'm glad to have you on for this. Very good.
Thanks, Marty. I'll see you out there tomorrow.
All right. Thanks, Susan. All right. More coming up. That's Susan Slusser of the Chronicle. Glad to have her on today. This is a big weekend for baseball in the Bay Area. It really is. All right. Mark Simon, Sports Info Solutions, coming up next right here on the Sports Leader.
Talking baseball with Marty Lurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the Sports Leader.
Fans, Bridge Bank delivers their clients full relationship banking, including treasury management solutions and global market services. Bridge Bank offers financing solutions to businesses for their working capital, equipment, and real estate needs. This is very important in today's world. Fred Voss is the Senior Managing Director of Bridge Bank's commercial lending efforts in Northern California. He has commercial banking teams in San Jose with Jesse Garcia, San Francisco, Oakland, Cheadle, Cordova, and in Pleasanton. Bridge Bank, it's like banking at home. I can't say enough about it. Hey fans, Gene Bagato checked in from Bodega Bay, and he said that in addition to the usual goings-on at the Tides Wharf, the big news is across Highway 1 at the Inn. After a 4-year hiatus, the ever-popular Bayview Dining Room has reopened, serving guests Thursday through Sunday evenings beginning at 6 o'clock. Now listen to this. Chef Remy Madrid, formerly of the San Francisco Yacht Club in Tiburon, has joined the Tide staff and has created a fantastic menu offering a wide array of dishes ranging from the classic coq au vin and seared salmon to the signature dish of the house, the filet mignon Hitchcock, a 6-ounce filet topped with Dungeness crab meat. Wow! Reservations are highly recommended, so if you're looking for a getaway that offers great beaches, scenic views, and gourmet food selections, this is it. You need look no further than the Tides Wharf and the Inn at the Tides in beautiful Bodega Bay.
Mark Simon. Mark, I love you, man.
Oh, no! He's a great Met fan. He's had a tough week, and that is Mark Simon of Sports Info Solutions. Before we get to Mark, the Giants lineup is out. Tyler Fitzgerald at short, Lamont Wade at first, Ramos in left, Conforto is the DH today. Chapman at third, he comes back to Oakland. Yastrzemski in right, Patrick Bailey is the catcher, Wisely at second, and Grant McCray, who homered the other day, is in center field. Mark Simon, Sports Info Solutions. Mark A. Simon says on Twitter, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Good to be back.
Well, it's going well, and I'm glad we missed you for a couple of weeks. How did the Sabre Convention go for you?
Sabre Convention was very nice. I like Minneapolis. It was a very nice city. Got to hit 2 ballparks that I'd never been to before, Target Field and also the St. Paul State's Stadium. Saw some cool presentations, finished 4th in the team trivia competition, which we won last year. So our reign of championship is over. But yeah, I'm glad to be home.
All right, now let me ask you, how do you miss a trivia question? What kind of a question could someone give you?
Love it. Boy, they asked some doozies on this. They asked for to identify players by their middle name. That was the big one. That one bothered me a lot. And it wasn't like Derek Jeter was one of them. Derek Sanderson Jeter, Jackie Roosevelt Robinson. But there was also like Cap Anson. And it's like, come on, he was born 150 years ago. How am I?
Did someone get that right?
Yes, it's Constantine, which 3 people I went up to and complained about that question, and they all knew it. And such is the way of Sabre, where like every person that you run into is a baseball savant.
All right. Well, we teased you about the Mets. The Mets are still very much in the wild card race. I'll start with that. They're only a game back of the Braves. But let's talk Mets vis-a-vis the A's, because the A's ended up taking 2 of 3 and came back from a 5-0 deficit. And we do have the A's here this weekend.
Yes, they did. Props in particular to Mason Miller. They went for the big thing at the end of the game. They went for the 6-out save with the guy who throws 101 and throws a slider from hell. And he was great for 2 innings. He got them through it. He even snuck in a splitter at 94 miles an hour, which I think caught everyone by surprise. But yeah, they played well. They they're not a good team, but they have kind of like their moments. Like the guy that's pitching today isn't bad. Brent Rooker isn't bad. If they have the lead going into the 9th, there's a good chance that they're going to win the game because that guy's ridiculous. There are like little things about that team that are all right, but yeah, they got the Mets 2 out of 3.
Well, I will tell you this: the catcher against the Mets. Now we're talking about Shane Langoliers. Now he came over from Atlanta, and he ended up going 4 for 4, 5 for 5, got 9 hits in a row, and what have you. But he gets on base, and he really destroyed the Mets. And you get Butler. And you've got Rooker, who was not in that series, but you've got people. Andujar from the Yankees is playing well for them. This is a team that's actually scoring some runs.
Yeah, well, to go back to Langoliers, he doesn't hit for average, but he does hit for power. He has 22 home runs in each of the last 2 years. The thing that will be interesting, I guess, in the 2 games this weekend is that he's very much a work in progress as a catcher. And when you compare Patrick Bailey and him and put them side by side and all of the defensive stuff, he can throw. Langoliers can throw it, but he doesn't block it and he doesn't frame it. He has a lot of trouble with both of those, and that's something where maybe the Giants have an advantage the next 2 days.
But is the bat legit? I mean, come on, Bailey is 1 for August. He's really slowed down.
So I remember when Langoliers was coming out. The guy was the 9th pick overall in the draft. People were talking about that he was going to be able to hit for power. So this isn't surprising. Right now, he's certainly an well above average offensive catcher, OPS wise. I mean, as I said, he may not hit for average. He's going to strike out a lot and walk a little, and you're going to have to live with that. But I think he's a piece in their future, even though he is 26.
The other one is this J.J. Bleday, who had a big grand slam against the Mets. It brought the A's back in there. Giants are going to have to deal with him.
Yeah, I like how you're picking out all the guys that crushed the Mets. He's had a decent season. Like they've got, as I said, they have guys that have had like 2 to 3 wins above replacement seasons, which are regular type players. He's one. Langoliers is another. Rooker is a star for sure. They're not the White Sox. I think who are coming in next. They're a little bit better than that. And as the Mets saw, and as other teams have seen, because I think it's now like 35 games that Oakland's played pretty decent, they can stack some wins.
Yeah, all right. Tyler Fitzgerald, and you weren't with us last week, but I went back and looked at Willie McCovey's statistics in 1959 when he won Rookie of the Year, coming up July 30th. And Tyler Fitzgerald, believe it or not, in a similar amount of games, kind of has the McCovey statistics. Tyler Fitzgerald has just been unbelievable.
He has. Marty, you should be working with Dave and John and giving them these kind of stats, because that one I'm now ticked that I missed. I got stumped by the trivia. I got stumped by the trivia in Minnesota. I got stumped by you. You're right. They're basically right at it. It was like 61 games, right? And he said he's got 1,000 OPS. And Willie McCovey had that great stretch too. A couple of things with Fitzgerald. Great athlete, great build, same size basically as Bobby Witt Jr., same speed as Bobby Witt Jr. The things that I think I would be a little nervous about is this isn't going to last at this level. Like 317, 1,000 OPS. He's not going to be that good for 500 plate appearances in a season. But even if he's like 270 and a 500 slugging, he's a superstar. So he has some room for error. The things that you would like, he does swing and miss a lot. He doesn't chase a lot. So I think that's encouraging. He's not going to get himself out, even though he is going to strike out a decent amount and not walk. And he's not, an all-pro in the field, but what a nice story. Like, what a nice story for this season. The guy that completely comes out of nowhere to be a superstar player happens to be on this team.
Well, and plus he's a good leadoff hitter, and if he gets on, he's going to steal a bag. He's going to do it, and he may steal second and third. He's got that kind of speed right now, and he is hitting the ball out of the park. To me, if he gets a ball over the plate, he's not missing it, and
exactly.
That's what I'm seeing. I don't know if
he needs a little something more to be able. He needs to either be able to hit. He needs to not be really bad against like the outside pitch. Or something of that ilk. Because as you said, right now he's superstarring the middle pitch.
Yeah, and gets on base, which I really like. You brought up Bobby Witt. How about this matchup this weekend? Bobby Witt and Ellie De La Cruz. How about that? Kansas City and Cincinnati. That's a good one. Yeah,
to me, Bobby Witt should be the AL MVP unless something crazy happens. And
what happened to the guy with 44 home runs?
So he's got a teammate that's just about just as good, though. And Bobby Witt Jr. doesn't have any teammates that are close to the world that he's in. He's got
Pasquantino.
He's got Salvador Perez. He's got Pasquantino is okay first baseman. Bobby Witt Jr. is a 1,000 OPS, 25 homer, 25 steal guy who's going to wind up 30-30, and he's going to be close to 10 wins above replacement, which is Mike Trout level. And the Royals are 12 over 500, and the Royals, quite frankly, really shouldn't be 12 over 500, but they have found a way this year. And I think when you have a superstar performing at that level, these are the kinds of things that can happen. And it is cool to see him against Elly De La Cruz. Bobby Witt Jr., better defender than Elly De La Cruz, who's still, at least by our metrics, maybe not everyone's metrics, by our metrics, he's still a little bit of an adventure in the field at the moment. But Bobby Witt Jr. was a 4-to-1 strikeout to walk guy when he first came up, which is what Tyler is right now. Bobby Witt Jr. has now since evolved into a 2-to-1 strikeout to walk guy, and he's cut back on his strikeouts a lot. I don't expect a guy who was a fourth-round pick to be able to match the skills of a guy who was the number 2 pick overall. But, boy, it is kind of nice to at least be able to think about it a little bit and hope that Tyler Fitzgerald can develop, even at age 26, into a superstar kind of player consistently.
Well, I love the speed and power. But,
Yep.
you brought up Judge, of course, and when I say the 44 home run guy, and Soto, you link them together. What a season for Soto. Obviously, it's a free agent season, and can the Yankees bring them both back? They've got Judge forever. This is going to be interesting. And look, the two of them, they are carrying the Yankees.
It is crazy. Like, if you take the two of them combined, they are the offense. Their third best hitter would be like, on some teams would be like the sixth best hitter. They have their share of issues when it comes to their offense beyond those two guys, but those guys come up 22% of the time, and they do so much damage that it offsets the fact that Volpe is a 680 OPS, and Torres is a 660 OPS, and Rizzo is 630 OPS. And Cabrera, a 670 OPS, and Verdugo, a 660 OPS. And I could keep going. They've been terrible. And yet, here they are in first place.
Boy, amazing. The Giants have the Mariners coming up. Obviously, they've got the White Sox, which I'd like to touch on with you just a bit. But they've got the Mariners next weekend. The Mariners they're first in everything, in pitching, everything. Every stat you look, they're first, and they're hitting .218 as a team. How about that?
Yeah, it's such a contrast. It's almost like their hitters are having to face their pitchers because their pitching has been really, really, really good. Luis Castillo, I don't want to say he embarrassed the Mets on Sunday Night Baseball, but he was really good on Sunday Night Baseball against them. George Kirby's had this weird thing where the Tigers have kicked his butt a couple of times, but other than that, he's 9-1 strikeout to walk or 8-1 strikeout to walk. They all do the same thing, too, which you'll see it, I think, from just about every guy in the rotation. They throw a very high fastball, and they want you to swing under it. And they all throw it pretty hard, and it works because if you look at their ERAs, they're all below 3.5. They just don't win because they're hitting.
They can't hit.
Yeah, they trade for Rosarena. They get Victor. If Victor Robles is your best offensive player for an extended period of time, that's a problem.
Come on, Cal Raleigh has 30 home runs and he's hitting 209.
He does. Yeah, he's a strange one too because he's so all or nothing. But the rest of the lineup, and Julio Rodriguez is unfortunately for him having a very poor offensive season. He's been hurt too. And I think they were expecting him to do what Bobby Witt Jr. is doing this year, and he hasn't. And as a result, the Mariners are where they are, and the Royals are a little bit ahead of them.
Boy, they all have the Mike Zunino disease. And that's,
Yes.
Hit 200 and hit 30 home runs. All right. Giants did bring up McRae, Grant McRae for center field, and his dad, of course, is the one who ran through the wall in a minor league game to catch a ball. But what do you think about Grant McRae? What do you think of his chances? Do you know anything about him?
Yeah, a tiny bit. I think he's going to be a high strikeout guy, and I think he's going to have to overcome that if he's going to be a successful hitter. He's someone that I think has been pretty well regarded the last couple of years in terms of overall talent. He's not necessarily going to hit a lot of home runs, though he did hit 21 in A-ball, stole 35 bases that year too, stole 52 in 2023 in the minors. Those numbers came down a little bit this year. I think that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be he's going to have to win with speed. He's going to have to find a way to get on base. He's going to have to overcome the strikeouts. I have a funny tidbit here. So he's, like 2 for 7 at the moment this year. I interviewed Rodney McRae a couple of years ago for a Sabre project where we write the biographies of every major league player. So I drew Rodney McRae, and we were joking about his limited offensive skills. And he said, hey, I led the majors in hitting in 1992. I was 1 for 1. And I said, okay, by that logic right now, Grant McRae, 8 plate appearances, is 4th in the majors in OPS, and he is between Aaron Judge and Juan Soto.
All right, I'll take Judge.
Watch out for the strikeouts. Watch out for the strikeouts like Grant McRae. I think that's the story. If he strikes out a lot, he's going to be a 220 hitter. I
know. Tools guy. He can run a little bit too. And they need a defensive center fielder. But they will have one next year when Lee comes back. Birdsong, just to touch on it just a little bit. Last 2 have not been good. The home run ball has plagued him. He's only 22. He's facing a team today. It's a day game at the Coliseum, roughly a day game, even though it's a 4 o'clock start. What do you think about Birdsong today?
Yeah, plagues indeed. It's like the Keaton Wynn scenario where the first 6 starts were good, and then the last 2 were dreadful. They both actually went 6 really good starts and then 12 runs in the next 2. He has to get to the point in the game where he can drop the hammer because his curveball is awesome.
Yep, that's great.
And that was the issue that he's run into was that fastball got pummeled a little bit the last 2 starts for home runs. I think he gave up 3 of them on the Heat. So he has to, and this is where Krueger and Javi Lopez and Sean Estes can explain it way better than I can. He's got to sequence his pitches better or more effectively, I guess would be more appropriate, in order to get to what right now is the best curveball in baseball if he can just get a chance to throw it with 2 strikes.
Yeah, it can't hang it either. That's the other issue. All right, great to talk with you. I'm glad you're back. We missed you for a couple of weeks. And Kappa Hansen, his middle name is, say it again?
Constantine.
I never knew that. All right, very good. Mark, have a good Saturday. We'll talk to you next week when the Giants play the Mariners.
You got it. See ya.
All right, be well. All right, Bruce Jenkins next, right here on the Sports Leader. Fans, nothing better than spending an afternoon at the Priest Ranch Wine Tasting Room in Yountville. You can relax as you enjoy a selection of limited production estate wines paired with local artisanal cheese and charcuterie. Your host will guide you through each unique pairing while sharing the incredible story of Priest Ranch. Now, while you're there, you must try the food at our new restaurant, The Kitchen at Priest Ranch. It's right next door to the Priest Ranch Tasting Room and serves amazing fast casual food. That's an afternoon.
Look through the window of the original Joe's on North Beach and you'll see two guys at the counter talking ball. Time for you to listen in to their conversation. Marty Laurie and the SF Chronicles' Bruce Jenkins are looking through the window of baseball. Sponsored by Original Joe's of North Beach and Westlake on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Well, it's the middle of August. It's a great time to be a baseball fan. Still a lot of baseball left to be played and a lot of divisions still up in the air, and certainly this National League West is one of them. Bruce Jenkins, still good baseball ahead here.
Well, of course. That's what it's all about. It's, especially as it regards the Giants. I mean, there's so many things that can happen and so many disappointing aspects, so many promising ones. And, of course, Marty, it's always good.
Yeah, what did you think of this week's series? Let's start with Snell and Sale on Monday night. That was one of the classics. A lot of strikeouts, but really a classic game right down to the end.
Well, yeah, that's. I remember we talked about how great that one could be. It turned out it absolutely was. I mean, I don't know which guy is better when they're both at their best. And Snell, he's been just so tremendous. But that series was a huge disappointment for the Giants. You can't. The Braves are a better team for one thing, as banged up as they are. But it came down to it came down to Webb needing a win from Webb, and of course they got it. He was fantastic. What I liked the best about the final game was that it was McRae and Casey Schmidt made most of the noise. I'm a big Schmidt fan. He had 3 hits and a homer, and McRae had a breakout game. It was delightful for everybody. I just like to see the new guys do well.
Yeah, and Fitzgerald keeps hitting the ball. It's incredible, but Bruce, his speed now is starting to become a factor. And, he's in that leadoff spot. He's going to lead off again today with Wade behind him with the righty on the mound. But I don't care, righty, lefty, it doesn't matter to me. He's my leadoff guy.
Oh, yeah, he has to lead off. I mean, and against every pitcher, too. You're not going to platoon with this guy. But,
no.
He's really he pretty much represents all of the really top-notch speed on the team. So you almost have to lead him off and get something going right away. But that's a part of his game, one of many that we like.
The A's did handle the Mets, and the Mets are, believe it or not, they're one game back of Atlanta in the wild card. And they did win last night. The Mets did beat the Marlins, and they've got Severino going today for the Mets. But the A's did knock them around pretty good, and the Mets are still only one back of Atlanta.
Yeah, it sounds kind of crazy. So what, the Mets couldn't beat the A's in a series, but when you really look at it, the A's are really good.
Yes.
you better be ready for that lineup, and you sure as hell don't want to be behind a run or two in the ninth inning. Mason Miller had a two-inning save where he's throwing 102 with a great slider. I mean, for heaven's sake, those guys are serious.
Well, I watched the game last night between the Braves and the Angels, and the Braves had chances. And this is the story with the Braves, and I realized they did win 3 or 4 from the Giants, but they're just not hitting. They are not hitting on all cylinders for the guys that they have. But the Angels brought in this Ben Joyce. I don't know, did you see this, Bruce, at the end? 104.
Yeah. He's done that before. That's kind of his MO. I mean, 104, that's just unbelievable, really. But, again, he's a lot like Mason Miller. You cannot be out there trying to scratch across a run because it's probably not going to happen. But the Braves, I think they're going to hit. They have too much hitting not to. They're getting Harris back. They'll get Albies back. Acuna's gone, but their pitching is outside of Sale. They're looking at they're going to need Sale and Max Fried and Ronaldo Lopez lined up for a postseason series, and maybe Schwellenbach. He's kind of come back to earth a little bit. He had a tough outing last night against the Angels, and his ERA's up over 4 now. But you're right. The Braves are very, they've got a lot of issues. I just can't help but think that they're going to be, getting it right when they need it.
Yeah, you would think so in September with the guys who've been down the stretch before, and Morton is the other starter.
Sure, I left him out. Yeah.
Yeah, who got his 2,000th strikeout against the Giants this week. But we'll see where they go with that. But the rest of the division, we'll talk about the wild card in a second, but Arizona and San Diego have just been on fire, and both end up losing last night. I don't know if you saw the Arizona game, but Bruce, they were losing 4-2 in the ninth inning, 2 strikes, a runner on, and Corbin Carroll is up, and he hit a home run to tie the game.
He's just a monstrous talent. I've been kind of surprised that his performance has been down this year, but he's coming on strong right now. And it's no mystery. He's got power. He's a presence out there. He's probably the best pure base runner in the game, just as far as timing, cutting corners, raw speed. And he hits that. He's down to his last strike, and he ties it up with a homer. But they botched it in the bottom half. There's a guy on first, a routine single to center, and McCarthy, who's been a wonderful hitter for them, tries to barehand it, drops it, and the guy scores from first and the game's over. I mean, for heaven's sake, that was just a brutal error.
Yep, and it looked like Willie Mays running, and really, and it was interesting because the ball was deflected by the second baseman, and until McCarthy could get there, but Arizona did not play good defense last night, and this is interesting for me. Because the left fielder let a ball drop in front of him as well that led to a couple of runs for Tampa Bay. And then you look at San Diego, and Colorado is a tough team at home. We've seen it before, and they took it to the Padres last night. Yeah,
they've had trouble with Colorado for some reason. Waldron got knocked around last night, and I can't imagine that's a tremendous concern for San Diego. They're just, what are they, 18-4 or something, 19-4?
Yeah,
they're completely. That doesn't slow them down at all. They've got Martin Perez is pitching well. Musgrove is back. Michael King's really solid. And Cease pitched a no-hitter. They'll probably get Darvish back at some point. I think their pitching, plus the improved bullpen, is going to really help them. I think they just hope that Arias apparently told the Spanish reporters that he's got a torn ligament in his left thumb. He's still playing. He says, I will not sit out, but his average has dropped a little bit. They need him at full strength. But and by the way, there were 2 hitters over 300 in the National League. 2.
I know. And wait till tomorrow.
Arias and Ozuna.
I can't wait till tomorrow until we look at our league leaders. It's incredible to me. And that's Arizona. Arizona right now has got the best offense in baseball. And they're just hitting the heck out of the ball, and San Diego is too.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona, once Carroll gets going, there was that amazing stat where if he gets on, they score like half the time. He scores about half the time. Suarez is on, Gurriel, Walker's been great. McCarthy's been great. That's a good offense. It's way better than the Giants. Both of those teams, just infinitely better offenses than the Giants, and that's why they're winning, along with improving their pitching. They've got everything you need to stack up for the September drive. So that's a little race in itself right there. I think the Giants. I don't think they really can seriously think about passing those 2 teams. They got to worry about Atlanta and the Mets.
Well, and they got to play these teams though. See, they've got 6
that's true,
left.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got 6 left with Arizona and 6 with San Diego. So the Giants have got to get the offense going, and that's the thing for me. That Atlanta series, they were in it with Atlanta. That one game they got blown out, but they were there. But they couldn't. What were they? 2 for 30 with runners in scoring position. They just got to get that offense going. That's been the biggest issue because the pitching, even though it's young and Robbie Ray is still coming back from the Tommy John surgery and all that. The pitching is still adequate if you can give them a lead in the 6th inning, they can get it done. They just don't hit.
No, I don't. I don't see them turning into Bohm, Harper, and Real Muto and Castellanos. I mean, they don't have the people to produce runs consistently. They'll have big games here and there. They just don't.
Yeah, consistency is the word. That's actually a good description of what's going on. So we'll see what happens. They've got their hands full with the A's today. Let's talk about the Dodgers for a second because they don't play the Giants again, but the Dodgers still have to deal with the rest of the West. Miller pitches today. Glasnow is on the DL. Kiermaier has been great in center field. Brucey threw a ball 99 miles an hour the other day to throw somebody out. And then you get Michael Kopech, who looks like the real deal as a closer.
Yeah, they're 2 really good pickups there. Kiermaier in center field is just absolutely invaluable. And they've got enough hitting to where if he's not going to be a solid hitter necessarily, but that's okay. They've got enough. They think they have enough hitting. But Kopech, he's faced 27 guys since he joined the Dodgers. He's allowed 1 hit. This is a lights-out closer they have, and I tell you, they need it so bad. I mean, Glasnow is out. I can't imagine he's going to be in peak form in September, in October. You can't imagine it. They called up Robleski, threw him in there against the Cardinals. He gets up 3 home runs. Buehler came out Wednesday night with a 3-0 lead and immediately walked the bases loaded. Betts has looked kind of strange in right field of all things. And Ohtani's 5 for 44 right now. That's a legitimate slump. That's shocking for him.
Yep. Yeah, he's bailing out. The swing is not there right now.
Yeah.
He's having a lot of trouble. Bruce, let's talk a little A's Giants a little bit. Of course, this is the last weekend, I guess. As Susan says, assuming Sacramento comes through, that we'll see the A's and the Giants play in Oakland. Some of your thoughts just in general about it.
Well, I don't have I've never been terribly engaged in the Giants-A's series. The Babe Ridge series always struck me as just a crashing bore. I didn't want to be there. Spring training, whatever. It's never been compelling. I heard Tom Tolbert and Adam Copeland say the same thing on KNBR yesterday. They just have never been caught up in it. It's not happening, no matter how much they want it to be. My memories of that, they're a little more esoteric, but one year they were playing a spring training game in Scottsdale, and both teams are really good, and it was a tense game. And in the 9th inning, Tony La Russa brings in Eck to get the last out. This is in spring training. He had to have that game. And I don't know, another one I remember, I think it was 2016. They're playing over there, and the Giants have the DH option, but they let Bumgarner into the lineup as a hitter. They didn't go for the DH. They figured this guy's probably a better hitter, and Bob Melvin's going, geez, I'd love to have a guy like that. He's a real hitter, and sure enough, he doubled in his first at bat. That was wonderful. But for me, it's not about Giants and the A's at all. I mean, they play in the World Series. It's one of the most lopsided you can imagine in your life. But to me, the A's, the history that they've put together out here, that's an entirely different story.
Yeah, it's a shame, and I've said it a couple of times on the show today. This is not the St. Louis Browns being run out of St. Louis to Baltimore. It's not the Seattle Pilots being run out of town to Milwaukee to be the Brewers. This franchise, when you look at it now, the ownership has never had money, so to speak, back in Philadelphia with Connie Mack as the owner. Then you had get involved with Charlie Finley and all the craziness of him, and only the Haas family ran the thing as a good business, really. I mean, as a solid business. And but still, they win divisions, they win World Series, and they have a great history.
It's amazing, Marty. It goes back to like 1901.
Yeah.
Connie Mack. By the way, Connie Mack managed this team for 50 years. 50. So he manages a team. They got Chief Bender and Eddie Collins and Eddie Plank, home run Baker. They built a powerhouse, but he had to tear it down. The business model wasn't working, so he builds another one in the late 20s with Jimmy Fox and Lefty Grove and Al Simmons and Mickey Cochran. And the Ruth's Yankees had a tough time with that team. And the Kansas City years, really weren't that great. They're known mostly for shoveling great players into the Yankee system. But this is really interesting, though. The A's get here in 1968. They get to Oakland. And if you look at the year before, their last year in Kansas City, not all of these guys played a lot, but people who made an appearance for that routine Kansas City club the last year in Kansas City: Campaneris, Rick Monday, Dick Green, Sal Bando, Reggie Jackson, Dave Duncan, Joe Rudy, Blue Moon Odom, and Catfish Hunter. I mean, we didn't know what we were getting out here. These guys all show up in 68, and next thing you know, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. Incredible story, and unfortunate. And look, Schott and Hoffman did the best they could, and Sam Spear was there, and things like that. It just never connected. They just never could connect, and it's unfortunate. Great fan base. I always said it was like the Candlestick fans. They love their team, and they show up, and they're very vocal. So yeah, I think it's a shame.
But the trend of being good has continued. So the Billy Martin years were fantastic. The Canseco, McGuire, Eckersley teams were unbelievable. But even between a 20-year period, 2000-2020, they went to the postseason 11 times. Yeah. They couldn't push across, but they refused to be horrible. I mean, for just 4 years ago, they were in the playoffs. I mean, through all the chaos in the organization. So the thread is that the business model hasn't always been great, but this team has always known how to build a winner. And, of course, they've had some unbelievably dreadful years. We're looking at them just recently, but in the late 70s and everything else. But if you really look at the history of the team, I mean, they've had two teams that are considered among the greatest of all time, the mid-70s team and the 89 team. Those teams are, for my money, they're both in the top five.
So how do you not become successful in the Bay Area with the millions and millions and millions of people here? How does it not become successful? How do they ruin it?
You can't change people. When the Angels moved to L.A., I was part of this, and I was a little Dodger fan like everybody else. And the Dodgers, it's just an unbelievable franchise. And people laughed at the Angels. They wouldn't think of going out there. I never did for years. I mean, it was just like whatever. The American League, whatever. We've got it all going on here, and I don't know many Giants fans who routinely drove over to Oakland and let alone give up their love of the Giants for the East Bay. It just didn't happen. It's ingrained. The Giants, I'm not trying to paint them as one of the greatest run franchises ever, but the Giants were an impossible thing to overcome. And it's really a shame that they didn't get a ballpark in San Jose, because it would have made a big difference. I think the Giants weren't hearing of it, probably rightfully so, but the bad business did them in as well. But just on the basics of it, they were never going to be the equal of the Giants here, just not in a million years. Because of the history.
The Giants had the 10-year head start and brought baseball to the West Coast, and that was never overcome. That was never overcome. But you have the East Bay to yourself, and you've got millions. And look, in 1990 they drew 2.9 million. And when you have an organization that consistently brings out good players and championships and division titles, it's almost like, how do you not be successful? You'd have to try not to be successful.
That happened too.
Yeah,
but,
and that's really what happened.
Yeah, but I mean, the ballpark helps an awful lot. When the Giants moved into China Basin, that was just a gold mine. We still see it. When the A's were good, people didn't care where they were playing. Man, they're going to pack that joint. But the Coliseum was always a completely ordinary, charmless, cookie-cutter stadium in the mold of all those multi-sport stadiums they built for football and baseball in the 70s, and it's still friggin' around, which is insane. But it's never been a great experience to go out there. It's all about the people you're watching, the people on the staff, the groundskeeper, whatever, but never the ballpark. And
it was all right till Mount Davis, I'll tell you that.
Well, that truly made it absurd. But even in the old days, I mean, they have way too much foul territory. That it's just not the park itself doesn't have any charm.
No, and we knew that. They just couldn't get it together and agree ever to get a new park.
Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, boy. Well, we got more to talk about tomorrow. They're doing a Hall of Fame today at the Coliseum. We'll talk about some of those inductees tomorrow and some of your favorite memories of being at the Coliseum. But, Bruce, we do have a historical note today, and it involves Willie Mays. I like it.
Well, Willie Mays, he hit his last homer on this day, number 660.
Wow.
Which, what was great about that is that at that time, the only guys ahead of him were Ruth and Hank Aaron, who was at 703 right that night. But he was the only guy in the entire 600s. He was the 600 club.
Wow.
I just thought that was fantastic. But I mean, you wonder how he felt. He's 42 years old. He's got all these injuries. He's playing first base that night. He's hitting .212. He's up against Don Gullett, a hard-throwing lefty, and here are the Reds with Rose and Morgan and Perez and bench, and Willie's probably thinking, this kind of reminds me. I had this one time. I had McCovey and Zepeda and Marshall, and the interesting thing is that the Mets wound up beating the Reds in the NLCS and went to the World Series, and Mays, was not a big factor, but somewhat. But sure enough, he hits a home run off Gullett to right center, honing that great right center field stroke. He perfected a candlestick, and then he struck out in the eighth, and he was replaced by Ed Kranepool. So I think he probably knew he knew the end was coming. Just the whole Mets thing was strange, but because he was Mays, he had moments throughout that season. This was one of them. And he had some in the postseason as well. And the players, Seaver and Kuzma, all those guys, absolutely raved about what Mays meant to the Mets in that last year, just because the knowledge that he imparted, the presence, and so But I just think I wish he'd stayed as the only guy in the 600s. That would have been really cool. But he had it for a while.
Yeah, I miss him. I miss.
Oh, yeah.
I do. I miss him. And I'm glad he got to play in the Coliseum as we say goodbye to the Coliseum, at least for the Giants this weekend. Yeah. All right, well, we'll talk more tomorrow morning. There's a lot more. Let's see what the Giants can do today against the A's. Birdsong and Bideau. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Marty.
All right, thank you. Well, that's baseball. More coming up. Gordy Whitmire. He covers the Reds for the Cincinnati Enquirer. We'll talk a little baseball with Gordy right after this.
Talking baseball with Marty Lurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
It's been a pleasure working with Rick Robin this year. Rick Robin, ROBBEN, NapaConstruction.com. Rick, the last time you were on with us, you told us about kitchen and bath remodeling, but there's a lot more going on up in your area.
Yes, there is. ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, which are nose to drain units. We can do your existing garage, attached garage, even building a new unit in the back. And so what we do is come out, bring our architect out there. Such a great thing. No sewer hookup fees, no water hookup fees. So that's what we do.
Rick, how does one start the process with you? How does one get in touch with you?
So you call Tammy, 707-332-7575, 7 days a week.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com. Rick, the thing I like about this, no problem for me. You come out with the plans, the permits, everything is in-house, no fees, and you get a new unit that you can rent out and get money back on your investment right away. I like it, Rick.
Thanks, Marty. Love talking to you.
Rick Robin, ConstructionNapa.com.
Orange and Black family, the godfather of Giants baseball now continues. This is Talkin' Baseball with Marty Laurie on KNBR, the sports leader.
Fans, it's great to have you back with us as we get ready for Giants baseball. We're joined by Gordy Whitmire, and he covers the Reds for the Cincinnati Enquirer, and we've talked to Gordy for many, many years about baseball. Gordy, how are you?
I'm doing great, Marty. How are you?
Good, good. It's kind of an emotional weekend for us here in the Bay Area. This is the end of the rivalry of the San Francisco Giants and Oakland Athletics. And this weekend will be the last time the Giants play the A's in Oakland. Now, you've been an American League guy before. I know you covered the Twins for a number of years. Maybe some of your thoughts about the A's in Oakland.
Yeah, I was in the division prior to that. I covered the Angels and the Mariners before that. Going to Oakland was a staple of the season. And, you know, even though it didn't always draw real well, I always enjoyed going there. Plus the history of the place. It felt real, you know, going back to Reggie Jackson and Catfish Hunter, and then later the Bash brothers. It's really sad. I mean, from a baseball standpoint, it's sad. And we know, right, that the A's are history's vagabond baseball team. They're going to wind up moving more than any other franchise. But Oakland seemed that seemed home to them. That seemed, especially for maybe people in my generation. I don't know, but yeah, it's really sad and kind of, I mean, bitter. I mean, if you're a baseball fan watching how this whole thing was handled, I mean, despicable actions and behavior by the ownership and MLB, honestly, for unanimous approval to move a franchise to Vegas after all its high-minded propaganda for 100 years on gambling, and now all of a sudden they're in bed with the industry. It's really a lot of the ugly business part of baseball in my mind, and it's really too bad because I think the people of Oakland deserve a lot better, and that franchise has really been, you know, historically significant.
No, I'm with you. As I said to many people, this is not the Seattle Pilots moving or the St. Louis Browns moving. You know, this is a franchise that's had a lot of success. And really, I think you summarized it well. It is one of those black marks against baseball. And the business of baseball took over. So that's a story here. But I know there'll be big crowds all weekend long for this journey that the Oakland A's are about to go on. Gordy, the Cincinnati Reds, the last time you and I talked, they were starting that easy part of the schedule. It didn't exactly go that way. But then they've rebounded again, and again, this third wild card spot is still wide open. And the Reds went on a 4-game winning streak. They lose last night to Kansas City, but they sit at 60-62, and they're 4 games back in the wild card. How do you feel about it?
I can't tell, Marty, if this is the weirdest damn team I've ever covered or whether this is the weirdest damn league I've ever covered, because it is wild, and I'm through predicting anything. I mean, just when you think they're set up okay and they're on a roll, you know, they get crushed for a week, and then the opposite happens. So I don't know. We've talked about this earlier in the year multiple times about the talent they have. And all that's happened since we've first started talking about that is that guys like Nick Lodolo, who's a very talented pitcher, has managed to stay healthy. Their bullpen, largely, by and large, has been deep and healthy enough. Hunter Green has emerged as a legitimate, bona fide, one of a handful of aces in baseball, and may find his way into a Cy Young conversation before it's all over with. And then there's Ellie De La Cruz, whose tool set is unmatched, really, you know, when you talk about all 5 tools, and he's still getting better. So they've got pieces that some of their lineup pieces that were missing for much of the year are back. They're getting contributions from different places on different nights, but they're just not consistent. But that describes, 6 teams that consider themselves in the hunt for a wild card spot. So I don't know. I don't have any faith in Atlanta holding on. The Mets are, I kind of like the Giants. The Giants kind of remind me of last year's Diamondbacks team with a couple of front-end starters, and then who knows what you get after that. And then look what the Diamondbacks did. However, I don't like the Giants as much after the way Atlanta took care of them because they needed to handle Atlanta. So who knows, man? But the schedule does line up in one way. The Reds don't go to the West Coast the rest of the way. They've got a lot of the toughest part of their schedule out of the way. They could go on. They were on an 8-2 run here recently. That might have even been just a tick better than that. They could go on another run like that. And if they do, now they could be in wild card position and trying to hold on down the stretch.
Boy, interesting. Boy, you nailed it. It is that kind of season with 6 teams. Everyone's got trouble, and they're all still in the hunt here as we go into the middle of August. Gordon Whitmire with us. He covers the Reds for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Gordy, this weekend you get to see Bobby Witt Jr., and you get to see Ellie De La Cruz, the 2 great shortstops. And Witt last night had the big game, had a home run, 25 home runs, 25 steals, and Pasquantino hits the big home run last night. Give us a little bit of insight onto this series with the Royals, because the Giants do have the Royals coming up in September too.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've pretty much described the high points there. This is a Kansas City team that maybe going into the offseason people didn't pay any attention to. And you saw some of the moves they made, and you thought, well, are they serious? And then you saw the way they played once the season started. You said, this team might make some noise. And then now look at them. They're, in all likelihood, they're headed back to the playoffs. And, yeah, Bobby Witt Jr., he might wind up as an MVP. I mean, I know people weren't giving him a lot of attention for that. But if they continue to hold their position and maybe even get better down the stretch, he's going to be maybe the biggest part of it, and that's going to go a long way for getting in a bunch of first-place votes. They're an exciting team, man. And it's interesting because they're ahead of the Reds right now, but Witt and Ellie De La Cruz are probably sort of symbolic of the 2 teams in the sense that Witt's about a year ahead of him. And we see he's a year ahead of him in performance, in sort of establishing himself, and in sort of putting his team that much further ahead of where the Reds are right now. What does that mean for next year if Ellie De La Cruz stays on track and they put some pieces around him, some additional pieces around him? So I like it as a bellwether matchup, and I like it as a bellwether matchup not only for what might ever happen down the stretch this year, but looking ahead at the next few years in both leagues. So it really is an exciting. It's not going to get national attention because it's 2 little Midwest teams, but it's an exciting series to watch just for the talent on the field for sure.
Boy, Nick Lodolo today for the Reds, Michael Wacha, believe it or not, for the Royals, who's having a good season. So for the Reds to stay in this thing, of course, you know, the schedule's important, but what players should we watch? Who do we have to watch to say, okay, these are the guys who have to come through for the Reds to make this thing happen?
Yeah, it's going to start with Hunter Green. Hunter Green not only pitched his way to his first All-Star appearance this year, but he's been lights out since then. He's been far better since then. I think he's only allowed 2 runs since the All-Star break. They need him to be not only the stopper if they get on any 3-game losing streak type of thing, or the guy that sort of impels them forward and sustains winning streaks. Everything starts with him. And then the guy pitching tonight, Lodolo, is another one. He's been on the IL for minor things 3 times this year, very short stints. He's electric. He's left-handed, so it's a right-left combination. He's got power stuff. If the 2 of them get going, and Lodolo in particular just stays healthy behind what Hunter Green's doing, they're not going to have any losing streaks down the stretch. And they might have, let's say, 3 mini winning streaks. Let's say they have 3 5-game winning streaks. That could put them in. They got enough bullpen, and they're getting just enough out of their lineup these days. Those are the 2 guys to watch. If they continue to perform, and if Lodolo in particular stays healthy.
Boy, okay. This T.J. Friedel had a big day on his birthday, a couple of home runs. Jonathan India had the thing going. Those are the two guys for me. When I saw the Reds play the Giants, Friedel, I think, was hurt, and India wasn't doing much. Those two guys for me still, when they hit, it seems like the Reds do better.
And that's where their lineup has been this year. They haven't gotten that consistently. And so when a couple of guys start putting it together, any couple of guys at any stretch, it makes an impact for the whole lineup. It shows. It's the eye test. You don't even have to go measure it. And so you're right about that. Friedel was out most of the year. He actually came back from the IL for 6 days. The first time the Reds saw the Giants out in San Francisco, he got hit by a pitch, broke his thumb, went back on the IL. And so he's now – and then he got a hamstring injury. So he's back from that. He hasn't been the same. Last year he led the majors in bunt hits with 17. I think he's got one this year. And so that's not in his arsenal right now as he gets fully 100% from that hamstring. Neither is his speed on the bases. But as you saw, he's got a little bit of power, and he still plays a pretty good center field. So he's a key part of that lineup. And India, since the end of May, has been one of the best hitters in the National League. And he continues to – he slowed down a little bit, but he continues to produce consistently. And he's one of the few guys that has more than a year or two in the big leagues under his belt in that lineup every day. So that's a big deal. But if they can be sort of the consistent guys, then when Ellie De La Cruz flashes every 2 or 3 days and does something, that changes a game. And then the other guys can fill in and play roles. But I like the guys you identified in that lineup. I would say, yeah, you're right about that as far as the lineup goes. But I chose the other guys because you and I both know the game starts with pitching.
It sure doesn't. Hunter Green is that good. Gordon Whitmire with us. Gordy, you covered Chicago baseball for a while. The Cubs, a lot of people are talking Cubs as a dark horse here. Their pitching rotation is coming together. They've got an easier part of the schedule coming up. They're starting to hit the ball a little more. So I want to talk Cubs with you a little bit because the Giants, Cubs, we still have that to deal with. But the Giants get the White Sox starting on Monday for 3. How bad are the White Sox? What should we expect? And a little bit of Cubs, too.
Yeah, well, the White Sox are awful. Most teams can show up and get a sweep. By showing up, it's an utter colossal failure if you don't walk out with a series victory. But you should get a sweep with any effort at all. In my mind, in my thinking, the teams that haven't done that are the teams that haven't taken them seriously when they walked in the door. Now, they're playing with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. We saw they jumped out to a lead on the Astros last night and wound up winning that game. They trounced the Yankees in one of the 3 they played in here this past week, and then, of course, lost the other 2. So if the Giants go in and they take it seriously, I mean, they should be able to win all 3 games no matter who's starting for them. And that should be, I mean, nothing short of a sweep should be the objective there. They're terrible, and they should lose 120 games this year. That's how bad they are. The Cubs, I don't have any faith in them. They started playing real well. They were on a nice little run. Their bullpen started pitching better. And just about the time I was ready to give that bullpen some credit, you had a breakdown like you saw yesterday with Hector Neris again, who loads the bases. Or he didn't load the bases because he blocked the guy home. So then when the other guys got on base, it was 2 guys on. But he completely blew the game in the 9th inning against the Blue Jays. Should have been a nice routine win when he went in the game. And he just poor execution. And they wound up winning in extra innings, but now all of a sudden they're spending more resources to win that game. They're spending more stress and effort to win that game, and that's a game that was in hand and should have been won much easier. So I don't have faith that they're going to hold up. I think they're going to continue to be inconsistent, and the bullpen, while it's been pitching much better, it's been pitching excellent, as a matter of fact, for the last couple months. or last month and a half, I'd say. I just have trouble having faith in them, and that could keep them out. Plus, they're off the pace. They got a lot of teams to catch. I mean, they're well off the pace, and they don't have any tiebreakers, and they don't play the teams in front of them. So they're at a big disadvantage.
Boy, great to talk ball with you. There's nothing like stretch baseball, and we got 6 more weeks of it, so there's a lot of things that can happen. Gordy, a pleasure having you on, and we'll catch up with you during September. There's more baseball to come. I feel it.
Yeah. Sounds good, Marty. I look forward to it.
All right, thanks, Gordy. That's Gordon Whitmire. You can follow him, Cincinnati Enquirer. More coming up. KNBR 680, 104.5, the sports leader.
Talking baseball with Marty Lurie on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Another year of baseball, America's favorite pastime. Baseball is rich in tradition, it's full of history, and so are the Georgie brothers. They've served the Bay Area for over 90 years. The 50,000-square-foot showroom, which I mention all the time, is full of some of the finest manufacturers of furniture, carpets, and window coverings. Now, here we go. One of the most popular furniture lines that I love, you know it, is Stressless. Stressless makes high-quality, comfortable furniture, including sectional sofas, love seats, single reclining chairs, as well as the famous Stressless chair and ottoman, and that's what I got. Starting August 9th and running all the way until August 26th, there's a new Stressless promotion. We call it the Wing Promotion. During this sale, you'll receive a $500 instant savings on every wing-style chair and ottoman in Paloma leathers. It's an unbelievable savings. This is one of the largest sales events Stressless Furniture offers throughout the year. So that's Georgie Brothers. It's Georgie Brothers Furniture. The showroom is in South San Francisco, the best source for home furnishings. Visit them at georgiebrothers.com. That's GIORGIBROS.com. And remember, tell them that Marty sent you.
Giants fans, there's no better way to set the game day table than talking baseball with Marty Lurie. Marty keeps rolling on KNBR, the sports leader.
All right, it is Hayden Birdsong on the mound for the Giants this afternoon, and I'll go against Osvaldo Bido. for the Oakland Athletics. We're joined by the Billy Martin of KNBR. He's been fired and hired more times than anyone in the history of baseball and radio, and that is Larry Krueger. How are you?
Marty, how are you, Marty?
I love you. Come on, I'm so happy you're back.
Oh man, I'm thrilled to be back. I love you too. It's great to be, back at a place that I walked in the door in 1997 for the very first time, and here we are. It's 2024. I walked in that door. I had no wife. I had no kids. I was not married. I now have 4 kids, 3 in college, and I'm 54 years old. So it's been a long time, but it's been a lot of fun. And thanks to Mike Kohler and Larry Bloomhagen and all the good people at KNBR for bringing me back.
Come on, we're glad. I was glad to have you on over all the years. It was fun to be on all the different things with you and have you on with me. So I'm glad you're back. All right, let's talk a little ball. It's not the greatest rivalry in the world. It doesn't mean a heck of a lot, but it's still Giants, A's, and it's still the Oakland Coliseum. And I'll tell you the thing that bothers me about it. When the Giants go on the road, we always had a game here. And John Shea wrote about this today in the Chronicle. We're not going to have baseball in the East Bay. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's not good for Northern California. John Fisher, I'm not going to get exercised about the whole thing and yell and scream, but he has not been a good, owner of that franchise. And Major League Baseball has made countless errors through the years and bending over backwards to appease him. And they've unfortunately, not done the best thing for the fans. The best thing for the fans would be to have MLB in the biggest markets and where there's history. And, to abandon this market, for Las Vegas is just, it's
crazy.
It's stupid. We saw the NBA do this a few years ago where David Stern and Clay Bennett had a backroom handshake deal to take the franchise from Seattle and put it in Oklahoma City. Has that been good for the NBA? I mean, is it better that they're not in Seattle and they are in Oklahoma City? I say no, and I would say this is going to be a bad thing long term for MLB as well. But they're doing it, and John Fisher has pushed for this. They sapped off the MLB dole forever until MLB said no more, and then they cried poor mouth and ran to Vegas. So it's really sad because we're talking about a guy who is probably the richest owner of any sport franchise in American history. And he could have easily built that stadium and owned it and had it paid off by now. But instead, he just insisted that other people should have to pay for it. And now they're going to go to Vegas and abandon their fans and their market. And it's just makes very little sense. Little sense.
Boy, well said. Larry Krueger, of course, the voice. He's back with KNBR. All right, I'm going to let you make an argument. And, we like to do this. I'm going to let you make the argument on why the Giants are going to get into the playoff.
Why they're going to get in? Well,
yes, I want you to make the argument why they're going to get in.
They're going to get in because they can put a big-time starting pitcher on the mound every day the rest of the year. And they, if their fans can pack the house, and I was there the other day, it was a good crowd. It brings some energy. There's 38 games left. It's a sprint for home. They've got the hottest pitcher in the game right now in Snell, and they've got they're putting a good pitcher out there, and they just got to keep the game. They got to play their kind of game. They got to play better defense. They've made the 11th most errors in the sport this year. They're not a good defensive team. They've got to hit the ball. I mean, they're 20th in home runs. They're 30th in stolen bases. They're middle of the pack in batting average. They just don't hit. They don't score enough, so they gotta get their kind of game, right? They're not winning 8-7. They gotta win. They gotta win the low-scoring 3-2, 4-3 games and play clean defense the rest of the way. If they do, with the starters they have, they might be able to overtake the Mets and get that final wild card spot.
Yeah, and the Braves. You got to see the Braves this week. We saw the game Monday night. It was fabulous. With Sale and Snell, and Snell is unhittable. His breaking stuff is absolutely unhittable when he commands it. You can't hit him. You're not going to get 4 or 5 hits in a row off him with a home run in the middle of that. We've got the Braves to deal with, the Mets to deal with. But this ball club, basically, they need to get a hit when it matters. And who's the guy for you? Now, Fitzgerald's a legitimate leadoff hitter. He can get on. He can steal a bag. He can steal 2 bases when he gets on. But who's the guy in the lineup that you say, this is the guy, if he has 6 weeks of superior baseball, it can make a difference? Who's your guy?
I mean, there's only one guy that this could matter. This could be, and it's Elliot Ramos. I mean, he's the guy. Yeah. He's the guy that stirs the drink. He's the talented. He's the talent. He's the guy that with the explosiveness. He's the guy with the, he's had a tremendous year. I'm so happy for him. I talked to him a couple years ago, and he wasn't quite there. And it just shows what a long road it is to make it. And this guy's made it. And I think if he could finish strong, I mean, the other guy that I would say, but I mean the numbers say otherwise, is Bailey. I mean, Bailey fades offensively from, early in the year to the end of the year pretty consistently. I mean, it's kind of, the numbers all show it. I mean, he goes down month by month and he gets worn out. I'd love to see him finish fast. I just think it's highly unlikely that he will. I love him as a player. He's a unique player, but he's not really established himself offensively yet. He's shown some good things, but I don't know if he can be an everyday catcher if he fades the way he's fading so far in his big league career as the season progresses.
Against righties, when he hits left-handed, he can hit the ball to left center, and that's what I like about him. He doesn't overpower the swing, but he just doesn't get hits. Since the break, he's got 4 or 5 hits since the break. So my point is this. The Rockies let Elias Diaz go. The catcher, He was the MVP of the All-Star game a year ago, and he's gone. They just released him. Why wouldn't the Giants go after him? You got Casale, nice fellow, good catcher, blah, 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 but you need offense. Why not go? You bring in Encarnacion back after he has 6 weeks in the Mexican League, and you bring him in. Why not go after Diaz here?
I don't know that they, the first part of dealing with your problem is diagnosing that you have a problem. I mean, I don't even know that they really feel that they have much of a problem offensively. It's like at the deadline, they were talking about adding a defensive center fielder. They're very defense oriented. So maybe they just look at Casale and they say, you know what? Yeah, he can't hit, but you know what? He's solid back there and he's a good clubhouse guy, and we'll just roll with the guy who can't hit. But yeah, at some point, you got to prioritize a bat if you're going to have a decent offensive team, and they really need a little bit. I mean, if what leads to a hitting streak? Any kind of increased offense. If they could get any kind of jolt offensively out of their farm system, obviously the trade deadline's come and gone, but if they could get any jolt out of their farm system or anybody coming off the DL, anything at all that could give them some offense. If they could get a little bit more offense, I think that's the key to their push down the stretch.
Yep, I agree with you. All right, this series, A's-Giants, how do you feel about this series this particular weekend? The A's are playing good ball. They hit a lot of home runs. Birdsong gives up a home run here and there. Tomorrow, it's obviously going to be a Snell game against Sears. That could be a tight game. How do you like the weekend?
Well, the A's, their place has no environment. I was there the other night for White Sox. I saw the White Sox, Marty, break the streak. I was there that night. Yes, I was there that night. My late mother was a big White Sox fan. I had dragged my boys all out there for the White Sox A's, and there was me, my boys, and about 75 other people. I mean, it was like literally nobody there. I mean, it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. But I think, isn't Rooker out? Rooker is the big bat.
He came back. Yeah, he's back. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I like the A's. I like the A's because the A's have a lineup in there, and they can put together some offense, and there'll be juice in the house. They'll play way above their level because there'll be some energy. Giants fans will pack the house. The final games of the Coliseum will bring big crowds, a lot of energy. Probably lean A's.
Okay, all right, we'll see. I like the Giants bullpen. I think Melvin has got to manage differently. The first sign of trouble, you got to get him out. You can't wait around until you're down by 2 or 3 runs and hope you can come back. So I think Melvin's going to understand that, and I think he's going to lean on that bullpen a lot. And I think the Giant bullpen is going to be good for this weekend and get this game today, and then I'll trust Snell tomorrow. So I think good things could happen. So we'll see. We'll see.
Giants are 14-18 now this year against the American League.
That's right.
So whatever do you even believe in an American League, National League? I don't know if there's any, these days, but for what it's worth, they haven't beat the American League.
All right. Hey, great to have you on, and we'll catch up, and I'm glad you're back.
Good to be back, Marty. Good to be with you. Always great to listen to you, man. You sound as good as ever. And it was great having dinner with you in North Beach at the beginning of the year with all your fans and all your people. And, I wish you nothing but great health and great success.
I appreciate it. All right. Be well. We'll talk to you. Thanks, Larry.
Yep.
All right. That is Larry Krueger. All right. Boy, what a weekend, huh? I'm glad to be with you. And, Walter, thanks for letting us run over a couple of minutes. Walter Ikabalseta coming up right now with our Giants pregame.
Seam heads, start cracking those peanuts and spitting those seeds, because gloves are soon to be popping.
He makes a headlong dive and makes the catch.
And bats are going to get cracking.
Blast one! Deep right field! Gone!
Welcome to KNBR's Giants Warm-Up.
Way back there! Goodbye!
On the sports leader.
What's up, Giants fans, and welcome to another Giants warm-up show. Almost said Rounding Third and King. I've been doing a lot of those podcasts. If you catch any of that, that's on early in the mornings on KNBR and on 1050, our sister station. But welcome, everyone, to the Giants warm-up. Walter, you're going to set that here, taking you all the way up to first pitch, 4:07, that weird start time in Oakland, and what appears to be the beginning of the end, the final Battle of the Bay series, Bay Bridge series, whatever you want to call it, in Oakland. We'll talk about that today and tomorrow. I'll be here as well tomorrow on the Giants warm-up, taking you through this series, the final one in Oakland. And 808 KNBR is the number. I just want to get your thoughts on Battle of the Bay. What are some of your favorite memories? We'll do this today and tomorrow as well. I just remember being a kid going out to the Coliseum, not by choice. The first time that I went to the Coliseum, it wasn't by choice. It was actually in 5th grade. We went on a field trip, and my teacher out there, shout out Mr. A, David Arkiri, was my teacher in 5th grade, and we went out there. We were learning decimals, so we were learning how to calculate batting average in 5th grade, and we went out to the Coliseum, and great time. And since I grew up in the East Bay, spent a lot of time out at the Coliseum. I grew up a Giants fan, but also respected that other team across the Bay. And yeah, this will be the last Battle of the Bay series where the A's have, for the most part, from what I remember and what the numbers suggest, have dominated the series. The Giants are 71 and 75 with a run differential of -18 in that series, the Battle of the Bay, Bay Bridge series. So today, the Giants try to get things going offensively. We know that they have their offensive woes. at home, especially. I mean, you look at that performance that they had on the road to start the month of August, to where they were the number 2 team, only behind the Arizona Diamondbacks at the time, with 15 home runs over the first week, that first road trip in Cincinnati and in Washington. Those 7 games to start the month of August had 15 home runs. Then they come home and reality kind of sets in. Now they got the wins against the Tigers, and they won 2 out of 3, should have won 3, but then you go into that series against the Atlanta Braves, which was just a deflating blow to the Giants. Not by any means are the Giants out of it at all. They're only 3 games out of it going into the game today. So there's still hope. I mean, you're still within striking distance, but just to see the performance that you get at home with the offense, it's just, the question is, and again, 808 KNBR is the number if you want to chime in on this Giants offense and what they can do to kind of right this ship, because we know that they're not going to win battles. They're not going to win just an outpouring of offense. We know that isn't the formula in no way, shape, or form. They have to pitch effectively and pitch good out of the bullpen. Now, you can't expect the starters to go out there, and especially today with Hayden Birdsong on the mound for the Giants. He's been roughed up a little bit over his last 2 starts, has 12 earned runs in his last 2 starts, I believe 6 1/3 innings. It gave up 12 earned runs. So he's kind of going through uncharted territory, right? I mean, we were talking about uncharted territory early on with Jordan Hicks, to where he was a reliever turned to starter, and we got to the point to where, all right, well, we don't know where the mileage is at this point. We don't know how effective he can be. Now, I love seeing Jordan Hicks now in his role in the bullpen and throwing triple digits. Like, you love to see that. But with Hayden Birdsong, I mean, he figures to be a fixture in this Giants rotation for years to come, and especially down the stretch of this season. So, especially today, when you're on the road and you're away from home, we know that these starters have not pitched well enough on the road, and just overall, I mean, they're in the mid-20s as far as starting staff ERA. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this Giants offense can come in and support, especially Hayden Birdsong today, because again, he has had rough outings over his last couple, to where he's given up 12 earned runs over 6 1/3 innings. So the offense really needs to be there. But the question is, who is it? Who is going to be that beam of light for the San Francisco Giants going down the stretch? I mean, there's been a lot of conversation on Tyler Fitzgerald, and I'll give a shout out to Mike V in San Francisco. He always calls in, and Mike, if you're listening, go ahead and give me a call, and we'll talk about this Giants offense. But he was one of the first guys on the warm-up that would call in and text in and talk on the YouTube chat. We're live on YouTube and Twitch. He came in and he was harping on bringing in Tyler Fitzgerald, and I was against it. But Tyler Fitzgerald has really been the offense for this team for a good portion of over 2 weeks, to where he's just hitting home runs left and right. It's kind of like, you can expect him to hit one. My question today is, when you look at the Battle of the Bay and you think of all these great moments, right? And going back to 2003, I was at that ball game with Eric Burns hitting for the cycle. And then you fast forward to Jared Parker hitting 3 home runs. I mean, that was a hell of a moment. And who remembers Jared Parker? That's another thing there. but Jared Parker hitting 3 home runs, I would not be surprised in the slightest if Tyler Fitzgerald came in there and hit 3 home runs. I mean, that's just what he has done to this point. He is creeping up the ladder of the leaders of home run on this team. Obviously, that lies with Matt Chapman right now with 19, trying to get to the 20 mark. And fittingly enough, if he was able to do it in his return to Oakland for this final Battle of the Bay. But again, outside of Tyler Fitzgerald and even Matt Chapman, where does the offense come from? I mean, Lamont Wade Jr. has been dealing with I believe it's a hamstring, so he's not able to move around like he's used to. He's still going to try to work and get on base and Elliot Ramos has kind of cooled off for a little bit now. So that's the big question moving forward. And just watching this series that transpired with the Giants and the Braves is that the Giants had, and I think why it's so deflating is that the Giants had their ducks lined up with who they wanted to throw in that series. How many times have we discussed and how many times have we looked to, oh man, if this team gets into the postseason, their rotation can be dangerous. And you look at what the rotation was going against the Braves, which essentially was a playoff series. I mean, obviously no one is eliminated and we still got a lot of baseball to go. 3 games behind in the wild card and behind those Atlanta Braves. But that was a series that the Giants could have closed the gap a little bit. Even if they would have split, it would have been better than losing 3 out of 4 against the Atlanta Braves. And a split after the first 2 was actually looking pretty good. So it's actually after game 3, it was nice to see that they were able to get a win against the Atlanta Braves. But again, looking at that team and looking at that series, you had Blake Snell that went out there and pitched his ass off. I mean, he looked really good, and he has been the Blake Snell of the second half that's on the back of that baseball card that you expected him to be. I mean, at least I was expecting him to come back from the IL, not to pitch this well and throw a no-hitter, but I expected him to be pretty shut down in his second half and going to the end of the season. And he has done just that. But he goes out there and throws, I believe it was 6 1/3, 6 2/3. I have to go back and look. But he pitched really well in that outing against Chris Sale on Monday night, and the Giants were unable to pull that out, and they lost in extra innings. And where I'm not going to talk about bunts. I've heard about bunts way too much this week. Not going to do it. But so that's the first guy in the rotation, right? And that was on Monday. And you go back and look at Kyle Harrison. Kyle Harrison pitched well enough to be in the conversation for setting this team up for a win. Giants offense was unable to come through once again. And then Robbie Ray happens, and he's recovering from Tommy John, and those kind of outings are expected. So then that's kind of the question where everyone's looking at this rotation, and they had everyone lined up. Logan Webb goes out there, does his thing, and gets the Giants on the winning track, and hopefully Hayden Birdsong can carry that momentum into Oakland and get this thing going again. You have the White Sox coming in, but after that, it's really tough baseball. It is extremely difficult, ready to go type baseball to where the Giants, they have to have that offense be a supporting cast for their pitching rotation, because we've talked about pitching, but the offense, you're not going to win games if you keep scoring three runs. I mean, that is an incredibly difficult task to ask of your starting rotation. And especially when you start looking at, well, you have Blake Snell and you have Logan Webb. Kyle Harrison, we're getting to that point to where it's a little bit of uncharted territories as well. With Kyle Harrison going down this stretch of the season, we'll have to see what his innings limit is and how long he can continue to pitch as the season goes on. But the same conversation could be said about Hayden Birdsong. And then you look at, I mean, what I just said about Robbie Ray, right? He's recovering from Tommy John surgery. So you have the 2 shoo-ins in Logan Webb and Blake Snell. And then we're kind of back at that situation to where we were waiting for this rotation to kind of form out and be what they can be. But we're getting to a point now to where I think the ask for this pitching rotation to go out there and give you 6-7 shutout innings, especially with guys that are in their early 20s. I mean, we're talking about 22-year-olds here with Kyle Harrison and Hayden Birdsong. I just don't know if that's a realistic ask, but it can be a good rotation if the offense starts to get going. And that's what needs to happen when you look at this Giants team and you look to what needs to be done. I mean, you have that big 2, and for sure, if they were to get into a postseason series, I feel really confident about Blake Snell and Logan Webb. But it's a matter of getting to that point, and they spoiled a great opportunity that was right in front of them. So I'm going to toss out to the phone lines. I'm going to ask, is after dropping 3 of 4 against the Atlanta Braves, does that change your perspective on what this Giants team can be down the stretch? Or is it more of the same of like, as long as they have Logan Webb, as long as they have Blake Snell and Kyle Harrison can be in there a little bit and they just battle teams and they have a shot every single night because of their rotation, scratch across enough runs? The question is, can they score? Can they score enough runs and support this pitching staff? So 808 KNBR is the number. I believe we have Mike in SF on the line. He wants to talk about the Bay Bridge series. What's up, Mike?
What's up, Walt? How's it going today?
It's going good, man. It's going good. I'm excited for this series. I'm excited to see how Hayden Birdsong can bounce back from some of his earlier outings this month. So it's all going good, man. How are you doing?
Oh, pretty well myself. I've actually come back down to game time, and like I want to say, like, as far as a little bit today about like the Giants A series, what that's meant to me. I'll probably call you tomorrow if you're on.
I am on. I'll be here at 11 o'clock so we can continue the conversation too.
For sure. Mom used to take me out to the A's games, to the Coliseum, when there was fireworks nights. And Dave Stewart, he was a big member, one of my favorite days, probably my favorite day. Ricky Henderson, I don't know. But Dave was the guy.
Oh, come on. You got to like Ricky. You got to like Ricky.
I'm just talking about favorites here. Dave worked the Boys and Girls Clubs of Oakland, and you know, real good guy. But what I want to say is I enjoyed my times at the Coliseum, and we'll leave it at that for today. As far as our Giants, and I want to touch on what the Atlanta series meant to me, because it meant a lot. I know Michael Harris, I pride myself on being up to date. Michael Harris, I didn't know was coming back this season. He hit that grand slam off Robbie Ray and on maybe the first pitch, and I was in shock. You know, I didn't know what to do. I was ready to hang him up, but there's 40 games left. And I think our young guys, Tyler Fitzgerald, my opening day shortstop, Elliot Ramos, a few of the other guys, the youth is carrying this baseball team right now at the plate. And I think they're inspiring the older guys to play. Conforto had a bad series last series. This series, I think he could pick it up. He's never going to be the MVP caliber player we had hoped for, but Mike can get the job done with the bat, and the other Mike has been great with the bat this year, as far as I'm concerned. Chapman couldn't ask for more. They're getting inspired by these young guys. Kyle Harrison was swell last time he was out there, and Hayden Birdsong, I just want to ask of him today, especially, like, when you're up there and you got a 97-mile-an-hour fastball, 98, but you're not throwing it for strikes. I see it, brother. Like, you're just hucking it, right?
Yep.
What you need to do is just calm it down. I'm not just talking about throwing a strike. Just calm it down where your arm action is within the flow of your body, and believe in yourself. This series is pretty big for us. Since we had a poor showing against the Braves. I believe our magic number is 24 out of the next 39 or 38. I'm not sure. But that's about all I had to say today.
All right, perfect, Mike. Really appreciate it, and I'll be here tomorrow. So feel free to call in, and we'll continue this conversation, talk about the Battle of the Bay, and how Hayden Birdsong is able to go out there, and if he's able to be effective. I mean, you mentioned there with his fastball, right? I mean, he dials up the velocity, but he isn't throwing it for strikes, because we know that his curveball might be one of the best curveballs on this staff next to Blake Snell. I mean, his curveball, nobody is hitting it, but he can't throw that effectively if he's not getting ahead in counts and making guys swing and miss at that curveball breaking into the dirt. I mean, there is a art to pitching to where, yeah, you don't want him just to reach back and throw high velocity because at that point, you're not a pitcher, you're a thrower, right? And that's kind of art. Is that what we're seeing with Hayden Birdsong going through this maturation process, is to see how he morphs into the pitcher, not a thrower, morphs into the pitcher that he has the ability to be. But again, I mean, you talked about a lot of great points there, Mike. You talked about the youth of this team that is coming through and kind of giving a jolt of energy. We saw it earlier this season with Luis Matos, and we saw it with Elliot Ramos and all these guys kind of coming in there and being that jolt of energy that this team desperately needed at those moments during this long 162, right? But if the Giants are so reliant on these young guys, do you want to see them play a lot more down the stretch of the season? Because I feel like right now the Giants are kind of teetering between, well, we want to develop these players, but we also want to compete and get into the postseason because there are only 3 games out of it. But that's the thing, is that if you start looking at more of this youth moving forward, then I would say that the goal has then shifted to, we're thinking about next year. We're looking at what this team is made of for next season. And if they're able to win, great, but they're trying to see what they have in their farm system. I like the call up of Grant McCray and him being there, but it's really interesting to see how this team, how Bob Melvin and how Farhan is going to construct this lineup, this roster going down the stretch of this final of the season, to where, again, I mean, you have this series in front of you, and we're not going to talk too much about down the road, but you have the series in front of you. You have the Oakland A's 4-2. These are series that you should win. Now, earlier this season, during the Giants hot streak, they split in San Francisco. They went 1-for-1. They dropped the first one, won the second one on the back of Logan Webb. Now, to this series, you have Hayden Birdsong, who the offense is going to have to show up for him. Just based on how he has gone out there the last couple of starts, I do think that it's still in him and he can still pitch. I'm not saying that, but the offense needs to show out, especially for these young guys that aren't as seasoned as a Robbie Ray, as a Logan Webb, as a Blake Snell. Those guys don't need the run support, but Hayden Birdsong does. And today the offense really needs to get going in Oakland and get off on the right foot and start winning these games, because once you get past Oakland, once you get past the White Sox, the schedule going to the back end of this month, you go to Seattle and you go to Milwaukee. Then you have Miami coming in. That's a little bit of a breather, but then it kicks into gear. For the first week of September, you go Diamondbacks, you go Padres. Believe the Brewers come back or come to San Francisco. And then you have the Padres again. So that's just going to be very interesting. 6 games each against the Brewers, Diamondbacks, and Padres, and I'm not even mentioning the schedule down the line with the Royals, that last road trip of the Orioles, the Royals, and then it ends with the Diamondbacks. So we will continue to talk about Battle of the Bay, the state of the Giants, how you're feeling after this last homestand, how the Giants came into it with the Tigers, did what they needed to do, wanted a sweep. But then the Braves, how did that change anything that you're thinking about this team? Still, again, only 3 games out. Anything can happen down the stretch, especially with all those games, 6 games each against the Brewers, against the Diamondbacks, and against the Padres. Anything can happen, especially with those 2 guys, Blake Snell, who pitches tomorrow, and Logan Webb, who pitched on Thursday and did what they needed to do. But the offense really needs to get going and supporting their young guys. So we will continue to talk about the Giants, Oakland, and the Battle of the Bay series on the other side. You are listening to the Giants Warm-Up Show on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Bottom three, Fitzgerald hits a high drive left center field. Going back on the ball, White. At the wall, gone! Tyler Fitzgerald. A booming home run to left center field.
It's almost time for hot dogs, peanuts, cold beers, and orange and black baseball. Our Giants warm-up rolls on the sports leader.
All right. Welcome back to the Giants warm-up show. There you heard it. Our key player of the week, sponsored by Key Point Credit Union, Next Generation Neighborhood Banking. That was Tyler Fitzgerald. Tyler Fitzgerald has been the offense for this team for as long as I can remember. Yes. Let's give it up for Tyler Fitzgerald, and let's kind of channel some of that positivity into today. Let's hope that he can maybe follow in the footsteps of Jared Parker and hit 3 at the Coliseum. Absolutely love to see that. But Tyler Fitzgerald, he's riding an 8-game hitting streak going into this game, 12 for 35. That is a .342 batting average, 6 runs scored over that time frame, and 5 extra base hits. You heard one of them there, that homer on Tuesday. The Giants would eventually lose that game to the Braves. Actually, maybe now I'm seeing a pattern. Maybe we don't want Tyler Fitzgerald to hit a homer because the last 2 games that he did homer in, Giants lost. So let's hope for more from Grant McCray. How about that? But Tyler Fitzgerald has really been the focal point of this Giants offense, and someone that has really just taken the league by storm. I mean, this guy came in and just started hitting home runs. What was it, Raph? It was like 8 consecutive games with a home run or something like that, and a lot of that was in Colorado. Yeah, a lot of that was in Colorado. I think it was 8. Or maybe it was a 9 with extra base hits. I forget what the stat was, but this guy was just tearing it up for a good portion of the month of July, switching over into August, and he's continued to do that. And actually, Tyler Fitzgerald has hit safely in all but 2 games in the month of August. So Tyler Fitzgerald is your key player forever for the Giants, but definitely the key player of the week, sponsored by Key Point Credit Union. Let's go out to the phone lines to talk more about this Giants offense. What do they need to do? Can they get it going? We'll talk to Steve in Bend, Oregon. Steve, welcome to the Giants warm-up show. How are you doing this morning? Or this afternoon, sorry.
I'm doing great. Yeah, doing great. Hey, thanks for sitting in and just talking tech for a second. Love that Roadcaster Pro you got there.
Oh, appreciate it, man. Yeah. It's a good little machine for me.
Yeah, I got the 2. It's really good. But yeah, here's my thinking. I hate to be negative on this, but I do think the A's are going to sweep the Giants. I think their firepower is just yeah. I just think their firepower is just going to overwhelm the pitching staff. The Giants may be able to squeak out, one of those games. Chicago White Sox, I think they're resurging. I'm not going to say the Giants are going to sweep. I would like to see 2 of 3. That would be great. After that, though, with the teams that are playing, clamoring for a wild card or division lead, and face it, with superior pitching, I told you I'd be negative, but I kind of mean it. I think the Giants are going to finish like 9 games under 500. Now, if that happens, bring up the Bryce Eldridges, bring up the Wins, bring up the Mason Blacks. I think the handling of the rookies is really shaking up their confidence. If you bring up a rookie and then you have them sit for 2 weeks and then throw them into the most important game of the year like they did with Luciano, that guy doesn't know where he stands. I would rather see him excel on another team than the Giants in the way that they've been handling him. Then just overall, pitching is wonderful. It's just this offense is so tepid, they just can't keep themselves in the game. And that's the drawback here. And plus you have poor Blake Snell that threw 114 pitches. He did the same thing on his previous start, and he only lasted 5 innings. So, look, they could be tied with the Mets. I don't know. By the time the A's finish with them and the Chicago White Sox, it's just going to be a tough haul after that. But anyway, great show, and look forward to hearing more, man.
Yeah, Steve, really appreciate the call, and yeah, I mean, Steve is speaking facts. I mean, it is a a little bit concerning with this Giants offense is just where the offense comes from, because we talk about Tyler Fitzgerald and he's been someone that has really just been on a heater ever since he came up into the big leagues. And we go back and think about Elliot Ramos, and Ramos was a big reason for the Giants offense, while Lamont Wade Jr. was on the IL, and he kind of was that point of the Giants offense that was continuing to move forward, right? And Steve, shout out Greg Dayton. You got a fan in the YouTube chat because he agreed with everything that you said. Shout out Greg, by the way, in the YouTube chat. Always love to hear from him. But this Giants offense, it's going to be really interesting to see. I don't know if necessarily that the Giants are, I'm not going to go ahead and say and make a declaration that they're going to get swept by Oakland. But Oakland has been one of the best teams in the quote unquote second half. They have really been winning a lot of baseball games since the All-Star break. So this is a team that you do have to be cautious of. You do need to be aware of their offensive firepower. Tomorrow the Giants have Blake Snell, so you have to feel confident in any Blake Snell start that he goes out there. But you know, that's the situation today where you don't have a Logan Webb. You don't have a Blake Snell. You have Hayden Birdsong, who was pitching very well in his early starts this year, but recently he has been getting knocked around a bit. And is that a factor of, you know, just having arm fatigue? But is the book out on him? I think we're just seeing the maturation process of what a pitcher is and what a pitcher goes through. I mean, you go back and look at all pitchers throughout the history. There are points to where they get figured out or they get tired, especially, I mean, he's 22 years old. But that is where, you know, it can't always be at be on the starters. It cannot be on the starters. The Giants offense needs to come through for these guys, especially for the youngsters, the Kyle Harrisons and the Hayden Birdsongs, and it just has to be more than one guy. It can't just be Tyler Fitzgerald. I would love to see Matt Chapman just, you know, storybook. We like to romanticize the game of baseball, but it'd be nice for him to come back to the final Battle of the Bay series, the final Bay Bridge series, go in Oakland where it all started for him, and hit his 20th home run. He hasn't done that since 2022 when he was a member of the Toronto Blue Jays. So we would like to see that and see him continue, because he's actually been someone that has been consistently good on the offense as well. But it's just there isn't a lot of it. Like there's two, maybe three guys, and then the rest of the lineup is just it's a dud. Let's go out to the phone lines. I believe we have Safe at third in San Francisco wants to talk about the Giants. What's up, Safe at third? Welcome to the Giants warm-up show.
Hey, wonderful to be here on the Sports Leader. I've never talked to you before, but I'm glad I'm on your show. You're running a very good show here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Let me say this, as I've told Kerry, I've told Bill, all of them. I'm 76 years old. I come from New York City, and I went to my first game in 1953 when the Giants were still in New York. And let me tell you, the game has changed so dramatically that it's hard to see. It's almost hard to watch. It's almost hard to watch because we're not letting our pitchers go to full 9. You know, these guys barely do 6, and this is where the game is right now. So if we're going to go there with that, then allow these pitchers to do what they can do and do it best. Birdsong is going to be okay. Stop babying him. Stop sending him up and down the elevator to the minors. You learn how to play Major League Baseball by playing Major League Baseball, not AAA. You're not going to get anything. So what you do
it's a hell of a concept, right? You learn how to play Major League Baseball when you're in the major leagues. Like that's a hell of a concept. It's nothing new, right? Safe third?
No, it isn't. I mean, today, the way the game is played today, Warren Spahn and Carl Hubbard are turning over in their graves laughing. What the hell is going on with this game? Okay, as far as our output offensively, I said in the beginning of the season, I kept saying to the radio crowd, this is a new team. It's not like the old team with Kapler. We got a great manager. Let him put it together. If we get in the playoffs, fine. If we don't, okay, we're going to look at next year. Now, I'm still wanting to get to the playoffs, and I think we've done pretty well in spite of all the ILs and all of the people going here, going there to be in, what are we, 61 and 64, something like that? That's good. We still have a chance. Dodgers are biting it. Phillies are biting it. All these other big teams are biting it. So just stay true to what you can do. We don't need to have somebody hit 60 home runs. Yeah. We got to get 9 people to play together. The hits will come. People trusting one another, playing consistently in your lineup. That's how the game. That's how it was in the World Series days with the 3 World Series we won. That's how it was. You didn't hear a tremendous name out there, Mike Trout or somebody like that. They weren't there. It was guys who wanted to play together and wanted to play in San Francisco. That's how this team has got to go. And let's just push them, go to the game, push them. I'm a Giant fan for 70-something years. I've seen it. And I think this team, if not this year, next year, because they know what they need now. That's all.
No, I appreciate the call, man, and call in anytime, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show. And we're going to take a quick break here, but I see Luis on the line. We'll get to you there. But what Save a Third was saying, I mean, it's pretty remarkable how resilient this team has been. I'm not trying to be, throwing out the slogans of the Giants over the last couple of years. Resilient SF. No, I'm not trying to do that. But it has been, pretty remarkable that they haven't fallen out of it more, given everything that they've had to deal with the lack of the offense and with the pitching staff just not being healthy enough. And yeah, the game has changed. The game has definitely changed. Not even from, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. I mean, obviously that was a different brand of baseball, but it's changed within the last 10 years to where guys, there just isn't a machine-like system to where you're just trying to keep the ball move or keep the line moving. You're trying to get on base. You're trying to get these guys in, not worrying about the long ball. That's what has changed in the game today. It's so reliant on the long ball, and that's, I think, the downfall to this Giants offense is that they don't have guys that can continue to move the line. Everyone is trying to hit the ball out of the ballpark, even when someone that's trying to has no business doing that. They should be a line drive hitter, and that's where the game is today. We will continue to talk about the Giants offense going into this Bay Area series, the Bay Bridge Battle of the Bay, the last one from what it looks like, the last one in Oakland. We will continue to talk about it. Hayden Birdsong on the mound against Oswaldo Bido. We'll talk about that and give you the lineup. We haven't given you a lineup. It's a lot of the same with Grant McCray in there, bringing in the caboose in the 9-hole who hit his first home run. Maybe we'll talk about him a little bit on the other side as well. And we'll give you a standings update. Also, Luis, hang tight on the line. We'll get to your calls on the other side, and go ahead and drop your thoughts in the YouTube chat on Twitch and YouTube. I want to hear what you feel about this Giants team and how you think that they should advance into the season and into the month of September. Should they be going for it, or should they focus on developing their young guys and look to 2025? We will continue to talk about that on the other side. You're listening to the Giants warm-up show on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader.
Now, back to the show built for the orange and black family. This is Giants Warm-Up on KNBR, the sports leader.
Welcome back to the Giants Warm-Up. And yes, this is a family show because we are all family of the orange and black. And this is a show for you guys. So 808 KNBR is the number. We have Luis on the line. I want to get your thoughts on the Giants offense. What's up, Luis? Welcome to the Giants Warm-Up.
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. What's up, Luis?
Not much, man. I was just calling to, you guys were asking earlier about how are we feeling about the playoffs being 3 games out. So I was just going, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, as a Giants fan, you're hopeful, right? I mean, that's why we're watching the game. That's why we're going to watch the Bay Bridge series. That's why we're going to watch them play the pathetic White Sox. We're hoping that they get in. But so looking at it objectively, I mean, we got to look at, like, what's this team's identity? If we look at all the playoffs and the championship teams, the World Series teams, what was their identity? It was pitching and catching the damn ball. And look at this team, like, what's their identity? Is it starting pitching? I mean, outside of Webb and Blake Snell, and what is it? I mean, is it the bullpen? Is it their hitting? You know, what is it? I think it lacks identity. And also, at the end of the day, I mean, do we really trust this front office and how they're handling? Putting together the team and how they're evaluating talent. Like, I go back to the series against Washington, like early in the season, when Fitzgerald literally, I think to salvage the final game, Fitzgerald was out there getting on base and stealing bases. And like, how does the team not evaluate him, look at him, and say, this guy brings power and speed, and it takes him to after the All-Star break to get him into the lineup consistently? Like, how do the scouts, the front office, the Farhan, Melvin, all these guys just missed it? Like, this guy could have been taking a lot more at-bats during the early portion of the season. Like, how are they handling the Luciano situation? Yeah. Like, it's just, like, at the end of the day, man, just like any good relationship, you need to have trust, man. And I honestly don't have trust in this front office and the way this team is being constructed, the way they develop talent, the way it's being managed. I think there's some questionable decisions by Melvin. And at the end of the day, like, we're hopeful, but again, what's their identity? Like, I mean,
yeah, it's a good question
to the playoffs. I mean,
yeah, it's a good question, Luis. I mean, that's kind of been something that the Giants have been trying to figure out all season long, and I think that coming into this season, into the 2024 season, and what Farhan tried to accomplish, their identity was to be better defensively, and they are near the bottom in errors. So that clearly has not happened. And their identity was to have strong pitching. And I think a lot of injuries had problems or contributed to that lack of identity early on in the season. But then now you start looking at these guys that are young and they're still growing. So maybe the identity is youth and development. Maybe that is what the identity is for this team. It's going to be really interesting to see how this team goes about it, because you mentioned getting into the playoffs, and yeah, they're still in it, and we still got a lot of meaningful baseball to go. And let's just switch on over to the standings update sponsored by the Alameda County Probation Department. Visit joinacpd.org today for a career that matters. And when you look at where the Giants stand in the wild card currently, they are 3 games out of it. So by any means, they are not done. They are not out of this race. They are 3 games out of it. Again, this series that just transpired against the Braves, it does sting a little bit, but they do play a lot of contenders, a lot of playoff teams, and specifically the Diamondbacks and the Padres. You have 6 games against those teams. Those are games that the Giants need to get, but the offense needs to get going. This pitching staff, I mean, you can't throw Blake Snell and Logan Webb out there every single day. So they have to figure it out. But the Giants currently 3 games out of the wild card. You have the Diamondbacks sitting in a tie with the Padres for 1 and 2, and then the Braves bring up the rear there. You have the Giants and the A's, the battle of the Bay Bridge series starting in a little bit. And we will start going to the pregame. Hayden Birdsong on the mound. Thank you for listening to KNBR, the sports leader.